Hey, good evening or good afternoon, wherever you're watching. 4:33 p.m. Eastern Time. Got a great show today. We're going to talk to another attorney and just checking in with all of you. How is everyone doing after this week of testimony and the Karen Reed defense witnesses on the stand? It's been a very exciting week in terms of the number of witnesses from, especially the two police officers and Lucky on the stand. It's been very eventful. And then today we had a day off, back in court tomorrow. So we're doing an earlier show, and I love the guest in the house tonight. And I love the returning attorney back on the show again. It's always good to have him. He's from Texas. He's been watching this. We watch him at night do his recaps. If you're not following, you should. He's on X. He posts a lot of clips on X as well. His X is True Crime Law at True Crime Law. And he's also on YouTube. We have that pinned in the chat. And he's now on TikTok as well. So make sure you follow him. Carl Steinbeck, attorney, criminal defense attorney, a former prosecutor, a former ADA. He's got military experience. He's got a lot of experience. And he has definitely been calling out what's been going on in the courtroom with Hank Brennan. And why is this even being, why are we on a retrial? And you know Carl. Carl is for justice, so let's bring him up. I don't want to even say too much more. Let's bring him up and let Carl talk about what's been going on. Like this week, I think there were 6 witnesses. Let's hear him go through all the witnesses. We'll take some questions. It's exciting when we have Carl back on the Stark Show. Welcome, attorney Carl Steinbeck.
Hi, Mike. Good afternoon. Good to be here with y'all.
Y'all, how's it in Texas today? Because it's pretty hot here. It's the hottest day of the year in Massachusetts so far. Why they had to shut the courthouse down today? Is it warm there where you're at?
Yeah, but it's warm here most of the year, so it's pretty much normal for the next 4 months that way. But we have, because it's the norm here, we don't have portable air conditioners like they do at the Denham courthouse there. I heard that this morning that they have portable air conditioners, and those things are really loud. If any of y'all know those things. But so I guess that's why they had to take a break, because it's just so noisy, and to shut it down, then it's so hot, and so I get it, I guess, in terms of jurors need to have, they can't be so uncomfortable that they don't listen to the testimony. So I think it's a good thing for the defense overall. And I do think it's been a awesome week for the defense, as well as it started out last week that way. So I think overall the defense, I'm just very pleased with where they're at right now.
Me too. And I gotta say, living in Massachusetts right now, we get obviously hot, especially muggy, very muggy weather. July, August, it gets very hot here as well. But you got to kind of get used to it. You're just not. This was like we've had kind of cool weather. We haven't had a hot day. This is like a really hot day today, and we all need to get used to it a little bit. I think it's funny. It's like in a month from now, a day like today will just be another day in July. But today, it feels hot here. But anyways, about beyond the weather and having them cancel court today, which stunk. And again, it's just a reminder for all of us in Massachusetts, we need to somehow invest in these courthouses and make them better. There's a lot of issues around how things are run here. And this is just another example that they don't have good air conditioners. Portable air conditioners are what we're using. Um, so Carl, I want to get to the witnesses. This is why we have you here. We've got a number of witnesses over the last week. Where do you want to start? Which one do you want to start with? You want to do them in order, or do you want to go with one of your favorites first? How do you want to do this?
I think we could just go in order. I think that makes most sense for me, and how I can talk about them.
So let's go. Let's start with. I'm trying to think who was the first witness this week.
Okay,
Actually,
first we had
okay.
Monday was Jonathan DeMantis. He was that friend of
Oh
Trooper
yes,
Proctor that had the
that's
text.
that. Let me just say, like I felt like that was the only dud of the week. Like that
Yeah,
to me, when that happened, that was a Monday morning, and I was just like, oh, and I was like down, and then the rest of the week it was perfect. Am I right on that?
yeah. I mean, they got some stuff on how Proctor conducted himself on this case. I think a lot of it was filtered. I didn't do an actual comparison of what we had known previously, but it seems like a lot of it was screened off by the judge, and some terms were not admitted, some of the egregious terms. So I think the fact that it was also brought out by Brennan, those questions on cross-examination versus direct. I've never seen anything like that. And then this witness is saying, like, I'm not comfortable saying those words. I'm like, you tell me that's the first time Proctor ever used words like that around you? I mean, come on, guy. This is not even. He acted like his ears were so offended to see words like that by Proctor. So it didn't come across as credible, and it's not as impactful as if you had Proctor describing the way he talked about Kieran Reed. But I think that what the jury gets is the prosecution is hiding the ball every day, every hour. They're doing all this rope a dope, trying to keep the jury misdirected into something that's not the actual truth. They're doing so much spin, and I can talk about that through some of these other witnesses. But I've never seen anybody like Brennan be such a master of deception, and for him to be able to get away with that in court is only because we don't have a real judge there that's upholding the law. In a normal court of law, you would not have any attorney, number one, pulling these stunts, and number two, you would never get away with it with a jury. So unless there's something really bizarrely different about the citizens of Massachusetts in that particular county versus what I've experienced across different courts in the United States, and keep in mind, as a retired judge advocate in the Army, I've done many court martials, and the military is a cross section of the entire United States, right? So we have people from all over the United States. We've had people from New York, Massachusetts, all up and down the East Coast. I've worked with folks like that, and I've never noticed anything really different about how the way they, interpret evidence and cases and stuff like that, and nor how they sit on the jury and decide facts and render verdicts. So I think that the number one thing I've always told anybody about being a trial lawyer, especially being criminal law, when you got people's actual liberties on the line, is you have to have credibility. No matter which side you're on, you have to have credibility as an advocate. If you don't have credibility, you could have a winnable case and just basically lose it big time because you don't have that credibility. And so here with Brennan, you don't have credibility and you don't have the facts on your side. So he's got a double negative here from the get-go. So if he was somewhat credible, maybe he could make some arguments that people say, you know what, he's just, he's not a bad guy. He's just trying to put forth an honest case. But when you have him over and over again treating people the way he does, and you're supposed to represent with class, dignity, and honor the government, it should really turn the jurors' stomachs to see this guy up there just making an absolute spectacle out of himself and demeaning not only the witnesses in an attempt to anyway, but they've done phenomenal, as we'll talk here about these other witnesses, but he's also demeaned himself, the esteemed position of representing the government, going after crime. And then you have this judge that's just a complete rubber stamp, kangaroo court type thing, third world communist style type of law. And so anyway, I just know it sounds more like something you've even seen in modern day Russia, for example, because I've dealt with
Sounds like,
folks.
yeah, like with Brittany Griner and all those other people, like, they don't even get if your country doesn't make a deal for you, you're stuck in the hole no matter what. It doesn't matter what evidence is there. They've decided that's it, right?
Yeah. Well, I thought that was just maybe back when it was a Soviet Union that it was that way. But we
It
had
was even worse back then, yeah.
a number of years ago when I was working at the Pentagon and International Affairs Division, and I supported the International Affairs Division as a legal advisor. And I know I dealt with a chief there, and he had been the defense attaché in Russia. And we had a soldier over there that was accused of murder. And he was telling me about how they had to hire an attorney to monitor it, how they had all this actual US dollars spent to try to guarantee him a fair trial. And it was basically a rigged system. So
Right.
even though he had a jury trial system over there, it was all rigged and he had no shot at a fair trial. And that's exactly what we see here with Kieran Reed. There's literally nothing is fair every day I see stuff over and over again. It's like, I can't even believe they're trying to pass this off as a legitimate trial.
Yeah.
So
It's,
anyway,
it's,
so
it's
this Demonis guy, I thought, I don't know. I mean, it didn't hurt him. I'll say it didn't hurt him, but it's not really powerful, strong witness to bring on, right? So that's the way I take that. It's still a win, but it's a marginal win at that. And I think of them not calling Proctor is something that is can be rationalized as a good strategy in the sense that they are winning the momentum right now, and I can't read the jury. If I could really read the jury, I would know this for sure. But from my perceptions of how it would be, because it is different watching it over, your phone
TV screen,
or a
right?
screen versus actually feeling. You actually can feel the vibe going on in there, the momentum in there. Just sort of like a sporting event, you can see who's got the momentum, and so I pick up on that in a courtroom, and so I can just sense that if I was there, I believe that I would be able to pick up on that same momentum with the defense now. And I think every day that goes on, Brennan's just losing more and more credibility to the extent that he has only negative credibility. He only has negative baggage to bring into the courtroom now, and he's just completely lost it. And so, so that's sort of the overall takeaway that I'm getting, is that the jury gets it. They understand Brennan is only acting this way because he's losing his case. And I've always said that jurors understand one thing is that both sides know the truth, and one of them's trying to get it to you, and the other one's trying to block it. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. I mean, look at all the objections Brendan is doing all the time. The defense hardly objects, and they could be objecting a lot more because he's just out of control. But the bottom line is the judge is going to keep rubber stamping it. And I noticed they're not doing as many sidebars as initially were doing. But I do think that with these witnesses that he was just so cruel towards, is that not objecting was probably the better strategic move, because number one, you probably weren't going to win the objection anyway, and number two, he just was keep completely digging himself a grave, worse and worse. I mean, he's
Some of it's
more than 6
worse.
feet under right now. So that's with the Manus, and then you have this.
Let
Boston
me ask
police
you a question.
officer.
Well, before you move on to that one,
Sure.
because one of our mods had a question on this. Said, Carl, you may have already talked about this. We kind of did, but not really. But what do you think of Brennan not having to say the gross words Proctor used about Karen? Bev let him say the C word instead of the actual word.
Yeah, I think that, for me as an attorney, no matter how ugly the words gets, I do not repeat those normally, and so I would want the person that said those to repeat those. And so the fact that she didn't allow that in is again a way of her keeping out the shock and awe of the behavior of Proctor on this case. And so it's very much part and parcel of everything we're seeing now. And it is something that I would not say as a lawyer, but I'd have somebody else bring that out as a witness. And if you're going to use this friend of Proctor, I guess I think it's very, like I say, very odd thing to do. But for her to block that is, the worst of the worst of Proctor, they're going to keep a lid on. So not surprised at all, but it just speaks to the level and degree of everything else. There's a microcosm of everything else that this is not a normal court of law by any means.
Now, I know that you're not in the courtroom. You don't know all the background of what's going on behind the scenes. But if you just viewing what you've seen through the screen, would you put Proctor on the stand or not?
I think it all depends on how the attorneys have to be comfortable in doing that, and they don't want to do that. So I would not say go for something that you're not comfortable with, because if you're not feeling comfortable that you can really bring out his bad side and bring him down good enough that it's a value, actual tactical and strategic value for you, then I would not do that. So maybe they're worried about him being sympathetic. He's already lost his job, and maybe he's going to come across as being like, maybe not so much sympathetic, but I think with Brennan, you never know what kind of tricks are in the bag there and what kind of deceptive stuff he's going to pull out, and just the delay factor of cross-examination. His cross-examination, it would probably just kill your momentum right there. I've never seen that before, where an attorney, you have to factor in the bizarre actions of the opposing side counsel and who you're going to call, because think about it, Mike, they're on this really good momentum right now, and they're just building their case, and they've actually just crushed it so far. And then you're going to get bogged down with all this stuff. Can you imagine the way, for example, Lucky got bogged down, the way Dr. Russell got bogged down, minutia detail that didn't matter?
Yes.
He's making a fool out of himself, but still, you got all this positive momentum you're writing. You called this Devers, and she looked terrible, but she wasn't on the stand that long, and so you're able to go back to positive stuff. The likability of your witnesses, the likability of these defense lawyers is very good. So maybe they just want to stay more in that positive mode where they're not getting in the ugly mud pit like Brennan has always wanted to pull himself into.
Is it also a sign too, you think, that they think they're winning, the defense? That
Yes.
they think they don't need Proctor?
Yeah. I think if they thought they were underwater and were treading close to that, if they needed to bring in Proctor, I mean, they brought up so many things of Proctor already, and that his name was attached to so many different things. So I think they are reading, if they're reading the jury, and I do get this from my observations of a number of trials. For example, the case in Florida I've covered, you have a lot of district attorneys and criminal defense attorneys. They don't make any effort to read the jury. It's like everything's just plug and play.
Right.
They're not reading how they're doing. They're not adjusting fire at all. It's sort of like imagine like a basketball coach that has a certain game plan, and they're losing by 30, and they don't adjust the game plan at all, right? Or maybe they're maybe they're down by 2 at the half, and there's one weakness that they keep, being exploited on with one player, but they won't take out the one player that they're exploiting on. And that's sort of like what I see with a lot of attorneys, that they don't know how to read a jury. They're not even making an effort to read the jury. So if you notice, Brendan's sitting so far close up to the judge that most of the jury is back to his right. He'd actually have to turn around to really look at the jury when the defense is asking their questions of witnesses. And then when he's going back to the podium, he's either standing at the podium or he's moving to the left because he's wanting to talk about stuff up on the screen, right? And then you sort of lose him on his mic.
Yep.
So under any times I've seen him, he's never looking to read the jury and how he's coming across. And so I think he's used to doing it his way, and he's just thinking, this works for me, so it must work for everybody else. And that's completely being tone deaf, and you can't read people. One of the great things about being a good trial lawyer is that if you know psychology of people, you're so much more effective. And so what he's failed to realize is that he's completely alienated himself with his jury. The jury's turned off by him. I think most of them should be absolutely disgusted and not even want to listen to him. His voice is very hard to listen to, by the way. And so you take a guy that's coming across very unlikable, very nasty, cruel, mean. I could go on and on. I mean, any kind of adjective you want to use to describe him that's not
gaslighter.
favorable.
I love that word comes up a lot. Gaslighter.
Yeah, gaslighter. He's trying to create a false reality for the witnesses as well as the jurors. So if the jurors are that clueless that they can't pick up on what this guy is doing, and so anyway, we can talk about more of that through some of these witnesses, but especially I thought the gaslighting was like on full display with Dr. Russell and also with Lucky.
Yes.
So you couldn't see a more like textbook example of how to become a lawyer that loses a jury with those two witnesses. Either one of them was just atrocious.
Dr. Russell, I felt especially too, being a woman, an older woman who's very like established, like, she's got the credentials. She's like any younger woman on that jury has got to be looking up to Miss Dr. Russell and saying, wow, she's the reason, we're able to advance, as a society, like, because things, before her time, she's a pioneer. She did things for the first time. There's doctors that are similar to her, I guarantee you, have come through the ranks since, but she's like one of a kind,
Well, she was so there's an attempt to vilify her by Brennan, but let me just go back to
Yeah, let's go
this
back.
Kelly
We'll go
Dever
back.
though before we do that, Mike, because
Yes,
I'm
that's a big one.
trying
Kelly
to stay on
Devers
track
is
here with my train of thought. Um, so think about how contemptuous and snotty she was to Jackson when he's questioning her. For that to be a law enforcement officer that's currently on the force in Boston, and I think that the fence knew that she was going to be nasty to them the way she made those threats to Jackson, and I think they knew that she would accuse him of unethical behavior and threatening behavior. But I think it's a really smart, gutsy move by the defense counsel to call her, because a lot of attorneys would be afraid to call somebody that's confrontational and they've not talked to in a long time, and they had a bad hang up the last time they talked to her. It ended on a bad note, a threatening note by her. So for them to do that, I just think it was so important to get that information out there, because it really is another dagger through the prosecution's case where they can. It's looking like they staged evidence against Karen Reed, right?
yeah.
So it's whether it's the law enforcement officers or folks at 34 Fairview, it looks so corrupted and shady and manipulated evidence. So for her to come in there and not want to have to tell the truth about what she originally said earlier, I think speaks volumes to how corrupt that area is. And it's they're not even shy about it. I mean, you think they could have some better way to go about bringing getting her not to cooperate than having the police commissioner, the chief of police, call her into his office just on a one-on-one and telling her what we got your back. Why would that be necessary to bring up somebody that would never normally have contact with a rookie, except maybe a welcome session, right? They're not going to be interacting with the police chief on a regular basis. And you know what the thing is? They know by putting that pressure on her, they know that her career is toast. She can never go on as a law enforcement
Testify.
officer. Haven't been known now on this case, because I guarantee you every defense lawyer in Boston area knows about this, that she has false memory as her defense to something she said to the FBI. So it's very much um, she's mad because she's put in a pickle there, because she's like, if I tell the truth, what I originally told the FBI, then when I call them back and said, no, it wasn't the truth, I had a false memory. I mean, what is a false memory? Number one, and number two, when did she get it? We did. That's one thing the defense didn't bring out. Is like, well, when did you get this false memory
Exactly.
realization? And
Yeah.
how could you have that vivid of a detail of something you observed, and then you like unsaw it? I mean, that doesn't world events don't happen that way. So who got to you? And we know it's pretty easy to figure out who got to her. Well, it was the chief of police, the
Yeah,
commissioner.
Helena Rafferty or the other previous Berkowitz is one of the other. You know what's funny too? You mentioned the Boston Police Commissioner having that sit down with her.
Mhm.
His background, do you know about his story? How, like,
No,
what he's famous for? Okay,
no.
he was a Boston police officer, undercover, black guy, on like the gang task force or whatever. He's chasing a suspect. Some white officers come along, don't know he's undercover, don't know who he is, and beat him up and
Mm.
seriously harm him, like basically
Wow.
almost kill him, leave
Wow.
him for dead in the cold. He almost died. He didn't rat on anyone, but then he ended up suing them. He did end up suing and winning. And now he's the Boston police commissioner, and he's the one telling her. It just
Oh.
it's just wild, isn't it? Like you can't write a script. It's just like
Yeah.
you can't even believe it.
And that's the and it's like it'd be different if he was maybe the chief of police for Canton or something. But if you're in Boston, what do you care about, doing anything but the right thing to expose corruption in Canton? So it just goes to show you that you can change the leader, but unless you change the culture, and that comes from the leader, you're not going to become a honest police force.
Shocking. You'd think anybody would know better, would be him, but
Yeah.
it's like almost like he almost got like promoted to keep his mouth shut and to a degree too. Like even though he did sue. But just wild, the whole thing.
Is it? Do
Yeah,
you
so
know if that's gonna?
let's talk more about her because Kelly was that was just I mean, I can't even. Let's talk about. She filed a report against Jackson.
Well, she
What?
went to she 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 said she talked to the FBI's legal department and then also
Yeah.
back to the interviewing officer agents or agent. And so, and notice she tried to say like they understood what she said and everything was okay. She tried to pass it off as that, but I don't think she's in the clear at all. I think that they really got their antennas up and it's like, wait a minute,
Oh yeah.
you said you had a false memory. That's not credible at all. And she was even what I picked up on, she was changing what time she got off work. She initially said she worked late.
Yeah.
Then she tried to say, "No, I was off that shift at 3:45." Well, you said you worked late because things were going on and they needed extra help covering down. So which was it? So she was even being dishonest in her testimony at the trial here against Karen Reed. So it was I thought it was very excellent that like I say they had the guts to call her and keep in mind she's the one that blurted out the FBI. So the
Yes.
jury was always wondering other agency, law enforcement agency would this be if it's not Canton, it's not state police, what other jurisdiction would there be? Then the only really option is the FBI. So she blurted that out,
Do you
and
think? Let me ask you this: with the witnesses, do they know that they're not supposed to say FBI? Like, do you think they're told that?
I
Or they
think I think if they didn't tell her, I think she's in such a panic mode and she's seeing her career flash before her eyes being called up there. And I think my take is that she was so uncomfortable because she's been giving contradictory statements and you're going to be called out either way, right?
yeah.
So you're either going to say something like you initially did that's going to be great for the defense, or you're going to stick with your retraction that you gave to the FBI and you're going to say that same retraction here, but you can't undo what she initially said. So even though she won't own up to it in this court here this week, it's before the jury now and they can see the pressure she got and it's very much easily to figure out that the reason they talked to her was that they're worried about her saying something that was damaging to comrade there in Canton and therefore and also state police I guess because um it was it was Higgins. So that's ATF. So I guess Boston works with ATF as well. So it's sort of like the blue wall of silence can extend across agencies, whether they're federal, state, city. It's sort of like they all circle the wagons around themselves. So I think that's what the takeaway is. And she also claimed that defense was very aggressive and threatened her to charge with perjury. I mean, defense doesn't bring charges. She knows that. She's been on the force several years. But that's typical what happens when you get somebody that's in this kind of scenario where they're caught and they're going to lie to the court and they have to come up with some reason why somebody else is the one at fault more than them. And so of course it's always the defense attorney. And so I've seen that happen before in my career. If somebody's getting caught in some kind of especially if there's a cover up and you got some lower ranking person part of the cover up and they know that they got some vital information, they're always going to say the defense attorney bullied them and threatened them and all that kind of stuff. So that's just like so routine. I just see that a number of times in my career. So I think that this is to put Higgins there. Keep in mind he was there at 1:30 in the morning, right to 2 o'clock roughly. He's looking really strange, moving stuff around. I mean, he's a busy person at that time of night, and he's been drinking heavily. That's not a normal activity at night to do all that stuff, and it's a bad weather out. And he said he had to do admin stuff. So I think there's a lot more there that we'll never know about Higgins that the jury should pick up on. And then him coming in there and going to the comm center to find out what activity there was extremely, extremely suspicious as well. So, and then you have, him getting rid of his phone. Of course, that hasn't been brought out yet. The phone issue. That's why I think, at a minimum, I'd want to bring in Brian Albert, as a witness because he looks very, very much like a guy that the jury could be scared of. and a guy that has a lot of ability to intimidate people. I don't think Higgins has that kind of intimidation power effect on people. So I think Albert would be, of the three between the two Bryans and Proctor, I would bring in Albert because he's an easy one to pick off for the defense. But anyway, going back to this Dever, she also says she doesn't remember telling Jackson that she'd tear into him or some vile words to that effect. So she was trying to that's almost typical of a witness that's scared because they don't want to be caught in the middle. And they said something initially before they realized how big of a cover up that was involved in the murder of John O'Keefe. So that's also the norm as well. What I've seen, that's that thing. Oh, so I'm like, gosh, I'm a central witness now. I can help prove the cover up for the defense. So they go backtracking big time. So anyway, she's been around long enough now to know also what sequestration order is, and she claimed to not know what that is. But that was through. Let me see which witness that was through. Through my notes here. That was through Jackson. She claimed to not know what a sequestration order was. Which, by the way, Mike, that's also
the anti-Karen Reed people, the trolls who say that Jackson should have told her that Jackson should have said, you know what, you're sequestered. That means you can't watch any of the videos, and you can't watch the trial.
yeah, but
Can't
they hadn't
talk
talked to her in what, since last year. So that's if she's put on the defense witness list. And what's curious about with Brennan, keep in mind, he says, we haven't talked before, right? I guarantee you he had somebody else like Lally or Tully talk to her, and he got the information passed through that way. So that, I think, is even misleading. I don't trust anything this guy says. And I think that's one of the sneaky ways he goes about doing his kind of work. Because notice he's always talking to other defense witnesses, like, who else did you talk to? When did you talk to them? What did they say? What did they tell you to do? And all that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of attorneys don't do that kind of stuff unless you got somebody changing their story, like we did with Dever. So I think there's a lot more the defense could have brought out with her, but they got enough out of her.
Definitely.
That this false memory thing is so laughable. But from my experience, that's typical of folks. They're not going to come fully clean if they know they're exposing higher ups corruption.
Wow, that's interesting that you've seen this before, where people change their minds like this. This is a comment that keeps coming up. Let me see if I can get this one up, and it's about her. I can't get it. Too many comments. Here it is. It's about her pay raise. Her dollars went up when she went to Boston. Do you see any significance in that? I mean, Boston does pay more. There's also a lot of Boston police officers get overtime, which is, detail work. And often that is handed out politically. Like if you do the favors, you get the extra overtime detail work. Do you think the defense should have brought that up, or did they have enough?
Oh, I think they have enough. I think that the amount they pay the cops here is outrageous, and I've never seen anything like it. Now, she started off more of a normal pay starting out at Canton, but when somebody multiple officers at Canton are making $230 to $330 range pay, that's just like unbelievable, because there's nobody else in the federal government except the president that makes that kind of money on a salary anyway. That for example, Tully was making, and the chief of police, I don't remember what she makes, but she's probably making more than that as well, or did. I guess she's left now, but yeah, it's also like I think they could have brought about, why did you transfer to Boston, right? So if you wanted to really work
That
at
was a question I
Boston,
wanted to hear. Yeah.
why wouldn't you start out at Boston? So, and I brought that out in questioning before. When I see cops moving around agencies a whole lot, I figured there's something that happened. There's some kind of disconnect. They didn't get along well with somebody, or they didn't like the corruption there. There's some kind of reason they moved along. And so the thing to keep in mind is she had 2 years, 2 months. And so she is starting out at the bottom. So she's not getting any seniority credit for that 2 years and 2 months she worked at Canton, right? So Granted, I think Boston would pay a lot more in the end, but I just wonder how much Albert was making. If we got little town, small town Canton folks making 322, multiple ones making 300 plus, what do you think Albert was raking in, right?
Yeah,
So, and she's
I,
only a couple years in, and she's making 147,000. That's,
I
and
saw
then she
some
comes across
his
that way.
numbers. I think he was in like the 150 range or maybe a little higher. I'm not sure actually, but you know who was the one who made the big bucks? It was Gallagher.
Yeah,
Gallagher from
Gallagher.
Canton. He
Yeah,
was making the 300,000, which is just. But there are a lot of Boston police officers who get that kind of money, and like it's not their base salary; it's all that detail overtime. You know, it's
yeah.
crazy.
Well, and I've also seen it where the more somebody's making illegal stops on, if they're, for example, out on traffic patrol, the more illegal stops they make, the more challenges by the defense lawyers. So they'll have that much more overtime by making illegal stops. And so, anyway,
That's another one probably that happens a lot with police. That's create more money for yourself. Wow,
mhm.
what an incentive that is. So this Kelly Devers, was there any redeeming her? Was there anything that Tank Brennan could do to save her? There was no salvaging, right?
No, no. Let's see. Keep in mind the cross by Brennan was only less than 10, 11 minutes. And that's not normal for him. He's normally want to go on and on and on, but he was very short on his cross. And so, and what he tried to do, try to make the defense counsel out to be bad guys, right?
Yeah,
So he liked to hear that part of it. But it's it's
there it is.
very much he didn't, that was a good thing. Like that's why I think on her he went short, but I think if you bring in Proctor, he's going to bring out a day and a half of cross. It's going to basically just make the whole make make the whole juror pool seem like basically really why did you call this witness? We just want to get home. We already know Proctor's completely corrupted in this. I mean, if it's not Proctor who did this, smashing out the back window, was it Higgins? Was it somebody else? The defense doesn't have to prove any of that. They've
Yeah,
shown that there's manipulation of 34 Fairview evidence. There's manipulation at the scene of the Sally Port as well. And based on that, then you have also medical expert, the medical examiner, it says there's not, they can't even rule this a homicide. They can't relate to how this all happened. There's so many avenues of reasonable doubt that it's just really amazing that I don't see how this could even be a hung jury, Mike. I really don't.
I hope so. I
So,
hope you're right. I hope it should be not guilty.
hmm
I love our audience. Sherry D looked it up for us. It's 244,000 was what Brian Albert made in 2022.
wow.
244. That's a good amount. Wow. I
I
was
mean,
off by like 100,000.
I think that's more than a 4-star general makes, which is the
That's
highest you can
crazy.
go in the
Yeah.
military, right?
Yeah.
That's more. I think that's more than what even like the Attorney General for the United States makes, or any of the cabinet level secretaries. Unbelievable.
Yep. So I mean, I wonder how long she's going to remain a police officer. Do you think that she's like obviously they're not going to get rid of her until this trial's over.
Yeah.
But what do they do with her? Do they put her on desk duty? Do they put her like doing paperwork? Like what happens
I
to a police officer in this type of situation where it's going to be tough for her to ever testify?
Well, I think that they're just going to ignore it for right now, and I think they're going to hope that she just moves on her own after she's like humiliated on cross examination on any case she gets involved in. And you might see from her the fact that she just doesn't want to really be involved in making arrests anymore. And so maybe they'll counsel her on the fact that she's not making any kind of quotas or not being involved in solving much for crime. And so I just think that she probably realizes that the damage is irreversible for her to make a career as a law enforcement officer, no matter where she goes. This will always be something that defense counsel couldn't bring up. And you're just not. you're just not going to have her credibility salvaged in the future, no matter what they try to do rehab her. It's just completely damaged as a witness, no
Yeah,
matter what the
false
case.
memory. Yeah, false
Yeah.
memory is going to come up anytime she was on the stand from now on. Tell us about your. Did you have a false memory of that? I mean,
Mhm.
um, yeah. So let's talk about the next witness because
Okay.
I thought obviously Kelly was so much better for the defense than the first witness because even though the first witness was good because you get the Proctor stuff in, I'm just in terms of how the defense delivered because the defense, like you said, they took a gamble. There was kind of a risk bringing up this Kelly Devers, and it paid off. It was such a good payoff. It was like, wow, look at this. This was, and her demeanor again reminded me of the previous. It reminded me of all Buchanan on the stand. It's the same. Jennifer McCabe, how nasty
Mhm.
they are and how difficult they are, and they don't want to just give an answer. It like the same pattern.
And if you stop to think about it, Mike, she was only there 2 months, and this was some while ago that she left, and she's still tethered to the corruption of Canton Police Department. She can't shake it loose. She's still tethered to that corruption, and she's in fear for her job security. Remember, she said her whole job is on the line.
Yeah, she
Her whole
did.
job is on. I mean, that right there spoke to the
Truth.
whole
That was the truth for
ginormous.
her.
Yeah, she had a ginormous mountain on her back, ready to crush her down into fine powder if she didn't do what if she didn't stick with her story that the police commissioner was implying. He didn't have to say anything directly, say, hey, you better rat out any other cops, but that's the takeaway anybody in her shoes would make, right? So
Yeah,
I understand she's in a $900,000 residence and needs to be able to pay that. So if you got maybe your mortgage on the line and stuff like that, if you change your testimony, then you're not going to. Most people are not going to change their testimony when they have that kind of pressure.
definitely not. Definitely not going to stand up when they have it all on the line. A lot of people, probably 9 out of 10 of them. Unlike Lucky, Lucky was like the rear guy. Rear guy. He just doesn't
Yep.
care either way. He's not gonna bow to the pressure from either side. You can tell.
Right.
So let's talk about the next witness because the next witness after Kelly was it Barrows? Am I getting that right? I'm
No,
trying to
Dr.
remember.
Marie Russell.
Oh yes, the doctor. Yes,
So she was
she
an
was
ER
amazing.
physician and forensic pathologist, board certified in both. She attended pre-med classes at MIT. She got her bachelor's at Northeastern, also in Boston, and then she also got her MD at UMass. So she's a native to the area.
Yes, former
And
police officer here in
Mhm.
I think Watertown, Mass.
Yep,
She's yeah, like
yeah, 7 years. She was a police
yeah.
officer before all that.
And even
So,
now in Massachusetts, got to say, like a lot of the police forces, I live in a town where it's all white men. Like literally, we're trying to get like one woman on the police force. Like, and a lot of the towns are like that. So for her to be a police officer so far back,
mm,
that says a lot about her. That's why I say she's a pioneer. Like, there's still a demographic issue with police. Like most jobs, I think have gotten a little more, less more, I don't know, what's the word, more inclusive, letting everyone in, you know what I mean? Like, but it seems like police is still one of those, and not every police force, obviously, but in certain towns and areas, it's definitely still, like I said, all men. It's like can we have one woman on the police force, please? Like that's what a lot of us townspeople, we laugh about. Like,
mm.
and then we get one and they quit, you know what I mean? Because they can't deal with the culture, so
Yeah. So for her, you're right. For her to have that toughness, because I'm sure she would have been harassed to no end being a
definitely.
female and pressured to wash out and all that kind of stuff. And so for her to have those kind of credentials in ER and pathology, and to have all this experience also working at a around inmates that are attacked by guard dogs for being out of line. So I mean, what combination would you have of those three things? She's probably the only one in the world with those kind of credentials.
One
I
of a
would think.
kind. Absolutely. And that's the
So
thing too. Brennan was trying to like make it seem like you have no backing. There's nobody else like you. But it kind of like it almost like enhanced her in a way. I felt like it was a double-edged sword. He was like basically like trying to discredit her, like but at the same time, it was almost like putting her on like. Did you hear what I'm saying? It was just like she's so impressive. Yeah, there's no one else like her.
Yeah, he would even say that on his in questioning her. Like you're
Yeah,
the, I forget the exact words, but he made it out where she's the foremost expert in the United States. He said.
yeah.
So you're going to do that, and then you're going to try to like nitpick on what she's testifying to. So the the thing is, I think what's helpful with her is that she's talking things in a way that's easily relatable to the jury. She has a likability factor. And what she says actually just makes sense to any neutral observer on the jury. It's like, wait a minute, this is supposed to be plastic from a taillight didn't s- that didn't we didn't hear how it could possibly break up to cause all those same linear type scratches when she's describing this as like a defensive wound from a dog attack. And so it just makes everything she said just fit the evidence perfectly. And she had no agenda. And I just think that the way she withstood that absolute browbeating, cruel, degrading, it was so degrading, Mike. I'm like, I mean, how can the jurors sit there and not just be having smoke come out of their ears between her and also Lucky to have this guy just come off that way? I've never seen I've never been so embarrassed for a witness. And also, yeah, I actually have some embarrassment for the prosecutor doing that. I mean, it's so cringy. It's so unbelievable. It's like this has to be some kind of spoof, right? Is this really a court of law on a murder case? And is televised around the world on different channels. So, and then the other thing is, like, I think what going back to what I said about the defense having the courage to call Devers because they knew they could get the ultimate out of her, which is she initially said something to the FBI, right? A statement to the FBI that was extremely helpful in proving that there was evidence tampering, which indicates also a cover up. So, but they knew it was going to be a rocky, rough road. She was going to be mad at them, accuse them of stuff. They had to have the internal fortitude to withstand that, right? Because a lot of attorneys say, "Wow, I don't want to get too much confrontation. If I'm going to get into confrontation, I don't want to call them. I just want to have all my witnesses like me that I call on my case in chief." So they called somebody that was extremely hostile and combative to them, and then you have, but for good reason, the defense were able to
Proctor.
bring that out that this was such a massive, critical piece of information that she backtracked from, and then you compare that to Brennan going after Dr. Russell the way he did and trying to put a spin on everything and trying to discredit her. Do you realize how many times? I mean, it was going on over and over again where he was trying to say, like,
It's
what about this,
unbelievable.
that you're saying this is a bite mark, or how do you know it's not a claw mark? Well, how do you know it's really not a bite mark? And I'm just going over and over again, asking the same thing. And, I'm sitting there as a lawyer going, okay, this guy's being so abusive
Badgering.
as witness.
Yeah.
The judge isn't stepping in. And so I'm thinking, okay, as much as I'm getting mad seeing this, his cruel, abusive treatment of Dr. Russell should just absolutely be such a massive, great victory for the defense. Okay, because if they didn't dislike Brennan before, that was the hook, line, sinker for this case. And then you followed up with Lucky and the way he treated
Lucky.
Lucky.
Yeah.
So he was equal opportunity that way. And then what you also don't do is, as a general rule, you don't ask, as an attorney, you don't ask a question you don't know the answer to because you haven't done your homework, right?
Yes.
So what Brennan would do is he'd ask her like the the comment about I hit him, just like he tried to do with the medical examiner, Sorty Bello. He tried to say, use all the things that he wanted to say an argument of why Karen Reed's guilty to try to get her to flip her opinion. And none of that worked with her. And so he's then trying the same stuck on, on
Dr.
this
Murray Russell.
fool routine of saying, well, did you know Karen said I hit him? And she goes, yeah, I heard about that. And you want me to explain that? And he was like,
yeah, she explained it.
ahead.
That was so good. What was it called? Grief, some kind of delayed grief or something.
Yeah.
We all handle grief
Acute
differently.
grief reaction.
Yeah, acute
grief reaction. Then he thought he could get her like, well, it's not going to last for years, like on
well, sometimes it does actually.
ID discovery or whatever it was.
Especially when you don't have closure, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I think about like you've I'm sure dealt with this a lot too. Like people have tragic things happen to them. Like I was covering this story for a couple of years. I had to stop covering it because it drove me crazy. But about a corporation that basically killed a 27-year-old woman while she was at work, and they don't give a shit, and that family I know still doesn't have a closure, like it, when you have tragic things happen and it's not like made right, you can't get over it, like sometimes it's 10, 20 years, right?
Yeah, and think so for her to blast him out of the water in his theories is, I mean, she was just like deflect. He was just he just kept on going down this road of abusive harassing her. And the thing when he said, do you have a memory problem, or however he said that, and she like dropped her jaw and gasped that, I cannot believe you just said that to me. And there's no indications. She is phenomenal. She's like probably around 70 is what I have heard. And I mean, she doesn't miss a beat. She is completely sharp and brilliant. And she's you never think she's in her 70s, the way she's so composed and so brilliant in the way she explains stuff to the gasp was legendary. And so I think that that at that point right there, I think it's also coincides with what I've heard reports from those inside the courtroom. It's like multiple jurors just put down their notebooks and like, this is like, we're not going to take any more notes. You've lost this case so bad, it's not even worth taking notes anymore. You're going to treat somebody that way. So I hate to see her treated that way, but bless her for withstanding that and not losing her cool, because that's what he's really trying to do. He's thinking he is so measured the way he can just like stick knives in people's back and twist truth around and try to belittle them with spins of facts and try to get them twisted up in their own words and make them, like we said, this is like the ultimate gaslighting I've never seen gaslighting this good before. And but the problem is you got witnesses that are brilliant and have integrity. She has absolute impeccable credentials, both from a medical, pathological, or I should say pathology standpoint, as well as dog bites, right? And so for him to just belittle her and demean her that way, it's and for her to maintain her cool, I don't know how somebody can be that patient. But when you think about it, Mike, like you're saying, the way she was brought up in a pretty much male only dominated small town police force for 7 years, and then having to deal with a medical professional setting as well, there can be very toxic type environments in that setting as well. And then she had to deal with inmates. Can you imagine inmates talking to her? Yeah. So she's been around some of the worst type persons to deal with, and it didn't affect her in her job at all. She just maintains her composure. It's like it doesn't affect her at all. She's just speaking truth. And so I think she's like, her and Lucky are like the stars of this whole case right now. I think that the jury is just so endeared and so much in love with their not only them and what they said, but also them as human beings. Because what I always try to do on a case, no matter what side I'm on, whether prosecutor or defense, is that you gotta have the heartstrings pulled for the jury. Right. What is Brennan doing to pull the heartstrings of jurors? I mean, you had Lucky talk about he lost his mom, his wife, right around the first time he testified. And now he's going to try to beat him up on his memory and stuff like that, which, by the way, didn't work. But he brings that really emotional statement out there. And Brennan just like it doesn't miss a beat at all in his verbal barrage, and he says, "Oh, sorry about that," and he just goes on to like try to smack him upside the head again some more. So I think these guys, these two witnesses, are have a bleed over effect as well. So I think, like I said before, I think the attorneys in their struggles to get the truth out and all the objections, the jury cannot ignore all that, Mike. I just never seen a jury that doesn't get it. That, like I said, which side is both attorneys know both sides. I guess it's a group of attorneys, not one on one against each other, but both these groups of attorneys, they all know the truth, and one of them is trying to hide it, and the other one's trying to project it. And so you got a battle going on there. And every day, Brennan's losing that battle because he doesn't have the truth on his side. But
He doesn't.
anyway,
And this is the next witness. Everyone's bringing his name up too, because you mentioned Marie Russell and you know, Lucky being such stand up people. I'd put Barrows up there too. I think the three of them, 1, 2, 3 in a row, were just this is America. You know what I mean? This is Massachusetts too. I gotta say, like, because a lot of people have been watching this nationally, and they're like, "What's wrong with you people in Massachusetts?" For us Massachusetts people, and Lucky from Canton, it's like good to see some real good people there, like who are just average people doing their jobs. And Dr. Murray Russell, she's L.A., but she's from here. And then you have Barrows from here, and then you have Lucky. So let's talk about Barrows.
all right. Well, Barrows, he's from Dighton, right? So he's
Yes.
where the parents of Karen live, and that's why Proctor was reaching out to that law enforcement agency to let them know, hey, we're coming into your jurisdiction, and we need to get this car. So that's a normal routine thing they do, is notify the local jurisdiction where they're making a seizure of a vehicle. And so he didn't take part in going inside the house, of course, but he was outside and that was perfect because he was there 20 minutes looking at, pulled up behind Karen's car and seeing Karen's vehicle, the SUV, and he did not see any massive smashed out tail light, right? He just saw a crack on the side, a piece that was missing from the side. And that's basically what we also heard from Karen, right? Karen said there was some crack in the vehicle there on the tail light. And, but the issue was the degree of damage. And so what he's described compared to what happened, we saw for photos at the Sally Port, is just a night and day difference. Keep in mind, we also had, as Jackson brought out, we had some squad car video of when the vehicle was being towed. That vehicle did not have that complete smashed out white look like they showed at the Sally Port. So if Karen was guilty, why would they have to manipulate the evidence, right? The only reason you do that is because you're trying to pin it on her. Just like Proctor said, we're going to pin it on the girl. And that's exactly what somebody did within the law enforcement arena there. Somebody, either at the state or city police of Canton, got in there, or maybe it could have been Higgins, for example. Higgins was back there a long time, as we heard from the Boston PD. So I think for Barrows, the way he was, again, I guess I should include that as well. The way he was talked down to, and the way Brennan tried to humiliate him as well. So we had 3 in a row where Brennan is just absolutely going scorched earth humiliation and trying to twist words around that they said. And so with Barrows, keep in mind, I think something that I picked up on, and I don't know if any of your viewers did, but being in the military, and it's so that we have so much diversity, right? And so one of the things that I'm thinking, this guy is probably not in a diverse station there in Dighton, right? And I picked up on with the name Barrows, he might be Hispanic. And so if he's a Hispanic guy, he's probably not fitting in with the culture there anyway, if it's mostly um, majority white or exclusively white except for him. And so he's probably having to go against the flow just to be there anyway. And then having the courage to speak out like he did, knowing he's going against the state police officers that were handling these matters. I mean, talk about courage as well as Lucky. Think about the pressure Lucky was under for the locals there for so long. He's like, hey, you're messing with people that are super powerfully entrenched in the political landscape there, from Morrissey and the judge and all the cops that are around there. So I think for him to be treated that way, I know in the military, if you talk to somebody, especially that was that had some minority minority ethnic lines in them, and you're gonna talk to them that way. I mean, that'd be like the jury would be so disgusted and turned off by you. So, but he doesn't care. I mean, he just looks at anybody that's called by the defense. He's going to try to make them out to be uh, dirty scoundrels that are lying to help Karen Reed. I mean, that's his mindset, and he's going to keep on plugging away at that. So, I think that that when you combine Barrows with Devers, and you look at that, we got the manipulation of evidence right there, all within that same 24-hour period. And then you also have the video as well to corroborate what he was saying. And keep in mind, Hank was also trying to say that, the one still shot they saw of the back of Karen's vehicle when it's like where the squad car is directly behind, and he's trying to say, see how that all that white, the vehicle's busted out, the back taillights busted out. I don't think that's a sign of being busted out at all. I think this has more snow and ice on it because it wasn't on the house side. I mean, I grew up in the Midwest where we had a lot of snow and ice, and that's very typical. You're not going to have uniform snow and ice on both sides of the vehicle, and normally the house side is going to have less than something on the outer side of the house, because you have that was like a 2.5-story house when you include the line, blocking the left side from getting snow on it.
Exactly.
So that's why I think that Barrows, to know he's going to come in and he's basically breaking the blue code of silence, and but he's got the guts, character, and integrity to do that. So I mean, he's another unsung hero of this whole thing, and he's not doing this for the limelight. And for Brennan to be talking to him like, oh, so you met in his hotel? Oh, don't you think that's a little bit unusual, huh? Like you're doing something shady, doing some kind of drug deal to help the defense, aren't you? So I mean, all that line of questioning, he's attacking people's credibility. So look at that. He's making it look like this guy is trying to do what? You're trying to grift, get extra money. You're trying to get
There was no
attention.
motive. What is the motive?
Piercing the blue wall of silence. I mean, what did he have to gain other than speaking truth and have that internal conviction, and be, no matter which side is calling him, he's going to say the truth. So, my gosh, if we had more officers like that, imagine how much better it would be to prevent these kind of tragedies like Karen Reed's going through. Also, I want to mention, keep in mind, throughout this trial, we're now on what, day 27? 28 will be Friday. Do you realize this entire trial, this attorney Brennan has been calling Alessi, and the judge won't correct him, and Alessi's, for whatever reason, is letting it slide. But that's really saying something to the depths that Brennan will go to try to get under people's skin and to try to degrade them in front of the jury.
Do you think he knows that? He's got to know that, right? Yeah, because the judge says it right. The judge says it right. I never noticed that, but I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, he does say, he says Elise, Mr. Alisi. Yeah, he does say that.
Yeah,
that is weird.
If I called you attorney, something other than your last name, similar to your last name, or Cruford. What if I called you Cruford all the time? I mean,
I'd say something. I'd be like, it's Crawford. Crawford.
Yeah. So you'd automatically say that, right?
Call me Crawfish.
Yeah. So, but imagine if attorneys doing that all these days, multiple times during the trial proceedings, and the judge is calling him Alessi, but only Brennan is not calling him by his name that he goes by. So, like I say, it's another type of the psychological warfare and psyops that Brennan is trying to do on not only the witnesses and the jury, but also the attorneys as well. So, let's see.
I want to ask a couple more about Barrows. Like, do you think it was effective? Could could it sway any jurors when Brennan did show that follow up picture and say, look at that pic? Like, do you think anyone fell for that?
The follow-up picture of which witnesses? I'm sorry,
The
I'm not.
picture of the tail light, the snow
Yep,
on the tail light. Do you think
yep.
anyone, any of the jurors? Because I feel like there was a lot. Like when he said absolutely not, I was just going nuts. I
Yep.
was like, holy crap! I can't believe he said that. That's just.
Yep.
But then when Brennan's kind of spinning it, around again, he's spinning it around. I mean, I think you're right. I think that this guy will do whatever, and it is a turn off. But I just wonder sometimes if people don't fall for it because it's so. Like I said, he's got a skill. He's got this weird skill to go where you wouldn't normally go. To kind of just twist things. Do you think anyone fell for that on the jury? Is it
No,
possible?
no, no, because Barrows came after Russell and he became before Lucky, and so he's sandwiched between two people that were just treated like absolute scum, and he was as well. And when you think about it, I I don't know if this came up on your channel with others, but I assume it did. Like he was in a horrendous head-on car collision,
Yes, he was.
and
Barrows.
he had a couple brain aneurysms after that. So the one guy you can't have dignity and respect for in class to not poke fun at their memory, and so I just think that didn't come out to the jury at all. But I just thought, you know what, I guarantee you, Brennan knows that happened to him. And so now you're picking on two people's memory. You're picking on Dr. Russell and now this guy. And I just think that um, he is keep in mind, it was brought out that he has no connections with anybody. None of them. He's never met Proctor before, Buchanan he never met before. He's never
None of the
met
witnesses.
any of them. He didn't know the Reeds before. He knew that Mr. Reed had called up asking for an escort to the hospital, but the name, but that's it. And then you have him describing the damaged taillight. He said it was maybe the way he held up the description of the size of the taillight piece that does somewhat correspond to the side of it, but he said it was the side of the backlight, not the actual taillight itself, right? That
Right.
whole big piece that the brake light turns on and is illuminated that way. So for him to say the taillight in the taillight port is not how it looked when he saw it, I mean that's massive, and that's why they're just steamrolling it right now. They're steamrolling over the government's case, and so that's why I think when they got this much momentum, they can really scale back the number of future witnesses they're calling.
Excellent.
So I think they're going to have ARCA, the two witnesses from ARCA, and they're going
Yep.
to call the Garrett Wing, the dog
Dog.
trainer. Yeah,
Dog trainer.
and
Yep.
that might be it. Because otherwise, they say they're going to finish up Tuesday, and I don't know how they can finish up Tuesday, even if they have any more than that. They may not. They may go beyond that if we get some of that marathon cross examination from Brennan.
Wow, this is amazing. That's going to end this quickly now after all this time. um. Yeah. So then the next witness obviously was our local Canton plow driver who used to deliver pizza for Chris Albert, Lucky Loughran. What did you think about Lucky? Let's go about that witness.
He's like the all-American, salt of the earth kind of guy, just like with Dr. Russell. I mean, they're just total class people. They're so well liked by the jury, I'm sure, and they're also true professionals, and they know what they're talking about. They know. Okay, you're telling me Lucky would not know that John O'Keefe was laying on the side of the road like that? No way. No way would this jury think that. And keep in mind, which I can relate to because I'm always scanning the road for deer. And so, as a snowplow driver, and you have a lot of deer up there, just like you do in the Midwest and the South. So, you're always scanning the road forth and back. You're not just looking straight ahead to see another oncoming car, some car pulling out. You're scanning yards, fields, ditches, always looking for a deer ready to shoot out in front of you. Well, that's what he's doing, especially with the tow truck. The tow truck. I'm being like Brennan there. The snowplow
Wow.
driver, and he's got all those lights on, and so he said, "God forbid animals," right?
Yes.
So he is so attuned to accidentally, tragically hitting and hurting or killing someone's pet or maybe a deer.
Dog. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he's very much that to me, I think, solidifies it for his degree of attention to what's going on the side, right? He's not just driving down this big rig, going down the road, looking to make sure he's not hitting other cars or mailboxes. No, he's actually looking for people's pets, their dogs that might be out in the yard or something, or a deer or something. Um, so I think that kind of, and he knows it's like the back of his hand. He knows that front yard. He has his lights go all the way up to the front door, you know, and then you have the forward edge that's not there. Then suddenly it shows up. I mean, this guy is like the one thing that criminals don't plan for is a guy like Lucky, right?
Yeah.
He was there right in the middle of the activity going on, and it just blows up in their face. And so the kind of pressure he must have faced this whole time up to the first trial and now up to the second trial, I think that the pressure would have been coming from all the folks that are anti Karen Reed and the government as well. Think about the state police don't like him coming forward with this. Shirley Morrissey and his crew do not like this guy. So he's had to have this this massive pressure on him to, you know, to not cooperate with defense questioning. And yet, what does he do? He just tells it like it is. He knows he's going to get completely um, just messed around with by Brennan, trying to trip up his memory, trying to distort things. Keep in mind the amount of gaslighting going on with him was just horrendously ongoing and repetitive. The way he was, he said, he wasn't harassed, he wasn't abused, and Brennan kept on going down that path. Like, well, the fact that you were abused and that you were harassed and they were threatening you and all. And he said, "What are you talking about? I wasn't." He kept on going on and on with that. And you know what? If think about it this way, Mike, whenever the defense is questioning a prosecution witness and they say, "I don't remember," it's like, and then like Jackson, I can vividly recall things like this. Jackson says, "Well," and they want to ask another follow-up questions like, "Well," and they'll bring up another detail to help trigger their memory, and the judge will sustain an objection from Brennan. It's like you don't see that in normal court of law. This is
No.
so one-sided. So
When he was going after him about you know, did the Turtle Boy harass you? It reminded me of like my last 2 years on social media because they all claim that I'm afraid of Turtle Boy and Turtle Boy harassed me and all this crap, and it's like
so
I
you got
it
harassed in
didn't
the court in
affect
Karen
it didn't
Reed?
affect my life. I didn't lose one dog walk. I didn't lose not one person came to me and was worried about anything written about me. Like I don't know. People are just some of these people are very fragile. Like if I don't, that's what I feel like, and like Lucky's not like that. Lucky said it just aggravated him, which it's a reality for someone who's normal. It just aggravated him. Like some of these people who are just such ratchets, they get so caught up about, oh my God, Turtle Boy wrote something about me on the blog. They're the same people who can't look at themselves and say, geez, maybe the stuff he wrote says something about my life. Like maybe I should, you know what I mean? Like it's funny how it works. Like, cause I feel like a lot of the Hank Brennan and the people that he's listening to, they have a very warped, distorted viewpoint. I think Hank Brennan really felt like he got bullied by Turtle Boy, and I think he can't. There's like a cognitive dissonance that he can't actually see that Lucky doesn't feel that way. Which is it's just really funny how your prosecutor has no sense of reality, or he's lying, or he's full of shit, or he knows that it's untruthful. What do you think about it, Carl?
Well, I think Brennan wants to bring people into his mud pit as much as he can and get them in this mud wrestling match, twisting words around, gaslighting them, and the thing is a smart witness will not get into that mud pit because he wants to anger them. He wants to get them disoriented to what the truth is, and then get them to believe the comment that they're saying is like this thing I just was saying about him being bullied and harassed and harangued by a blogger and his henchmen. Well, and he just won't have any of it. And the point I was wondering, it's like, well, then he also is making out how he's hanging out with the guy and being buddies with him.
Yeah,
And stuff.
you're a follower.
Which is
Yeah.
it?
How could you be a follower and be bullied by the guy?
So Brendan
And
is
it's funny too, because you know who's a follower of Turtle Boy? Hank Brennan. Hank Brennan follows every single blog post, every single show. D.A. Morrissey, the state police, Brennan, they're all following Turtle Boy. So it's kind of funny. Again, there's that kind of projection. It's like they're putting their own. It's weird. It is weird.
Yeah. So you mentioned projection. So keep this in mind, is that this whole, going back to Dr. Russell, remember this whole issue with Alessi driving with her. They had, I guess, a chauffeur driving them to the courthouse.
Yeah.
Second day she testified, and he tried to make a big stink about how that was violating the sequestration order, which I said when I was doing the live stream. I was like, there's no sequestration order that applies to attorneys on the case. He can always bring up what you're going to question them on and stuff like that. The sequestration order is to prevent witnesses viewing other people's testimony and then using that to shape their own, right? So that's what the intent of the rule is. But attorneys, they can always go in and question witnesses. Hey, I think I'm going to ask you something different. I remember what we talked about. I was going to ask you about, the Sally Port. I think I'm going to stay away from that this time. We're going to focus on a different area. And they can always do that. And so what Brennan was doing was trying to make it look like Alessi and her were conspiring together to violate the order, when it's like that can't be the case. There's like a sequestration order normally in a court. It's not actually a written order. It's just something the attorneys know. Like here in Texas, before a trial starts, the judge will ask, civil and criminal, any attorneys wish to invoke the rule? Well, the rule is sequestration of witnesses. So that means witnesses can't watch each other testify and then go back to the peanut gallery and hang out there the whole time of the trial, right? So until you're dismissed, you're not allowed to watch the trial, either in person, or if it's on a live stream, you cannot do that either. So what I was thinking was, if this goes to projection, because think about it. Brennan, we know from Burgess, was calling up Burgess and was getting him to edit his report with new information. So he was doing the very thing, and she wasn't even changing any of her testimony, right? She didn't admit to any of that. He
said you can ask for transcripts. I think that's all he said, right?
Yeah, he was modifying stuff to. Yeah, he said, beware of, ask for transcripts. He's going to try to trip you up. That's not a substantive change of her testimony.
No.
That's just saying, hey, this is what a slickster this guy is. That's be on guard, because he's going to make up facts. If he's quoting you from a previous statement you gave, ask to see it. That's why because he's going to gaslight you. That's a normal thing you would do, and it's totally permissible. But what he was doing is trying to have his own expert change his report mid-trial, and that was perfectly okay, right? And the judge doesn't care about that. There's no Rule 14. You just continually modify your theory of the case, your data. So anyway, it's very much a projection, and anything he's accusing somebody else of, I guarantee you he's been doing it behind the scenes or in front of the jury the whole time.
Sure. That a lot. The question that Kristen from Manhattan has. She wants to know, Carl, in opening statements, the defense stated they have a witness confirming John O'Keefe entered the house. Thus far, this hasn't been presented. Would the jury hold this question against Karen Reed?
I think, number one, how much is this through a long trial like this? How much is a jury going to remember? And do they have this in their notes? And so I don't know if they're going to make a statement for completeness if they were trying to bring in all these other statements of Karen Reed. I know she said at the courthouse steps a couple weeks ago, she said, I saw him go in the house, but I don't think that's a a big deal, because me as an attorney, I'd say, you know what, the government hasn't proven their case. We're adjusting what we said is going to happen in opening, and they haven't met their burden of proof, and we've scaled this back. We're not calling as many witnesses because we don't have a burden, and we know y'all can see that the government has failed miserably. So we short-tailed and cut off a number of witnesses and evidence pieces we're going to normally introduce into this case. So what are you going to hold that against the jury? I don't see that happening. Not at all.
Not.
You can
Let's
explain
hope not.
that.
So, any final thoughts on Lucky? Lucky
Yeah,
Lafren or the
for
cross
Lucky,
fan?
let me see here. So for Lucky, it was just unbelievable to me. I think one of the main takeaways, besides his awesome character and the kind of jobs he held, delivering pizzas, he's driving the what do you call that ice machine at the skating rink. He's driving the Franken truck.
Yeah, Franken
And,
truck. I love that. I mean, Franken truck.
This guy's like, I mean, talk about a guy that's a hustler and just a hard-working, blue-collar kind of guy that's just an amazing human being. And so,
You know what's funny too, because it's again this whole projection thing I talked about. Hank Brennan puts up the picture of him with somebody who's been on my show over and over again. Rita Lombardi, she ran for select board in the town of Canton, and Rita's like a very well-known vocal advocate for change in the town of Canton. And Rita was one of the folks that definitely helped get the police chief to move on, let's say. And so when he left court the first time, Rita's a Canton resident, Lucky's a Canton resident. These people have known each other for a long time, for decades. She's got a green Lucky shirt on. She's got, he takes a picture with her. And then he moves on. And he did exactly what he was being polite. And I know, because a lot of Canton people, I talk to them, I know family and friends of his, and just you hear things. And this guy doesn't want the spotlight. Everything he's done is he wants to be left alone. He doesn't even want the congratulations and the thank yous, he just wants to live his life like this never happened.
Yep.
And so for Hank to turn around and say, dude, you're doing this for the attention. Look at you. You're trying to be somebody. There was a GoFundMe set up for him. It raised a lot of money. He was like, nope. All the money got sent back. He rejected it. That's Lucky. Lucky doesn't want anything. Lucky, like he said, he really means what he said. He was just doing his job. Just doing the right thing. He doesn't think he did anything special. Like, that is the real Lucky. And for Hank to pretend it's something else, it's just it's so shady.
Okay. Do you really think, to ask yourself this, do you really think Brennan made him look out to be a grifter?
No.
Like a grifter,
no.
Seeking the limelight and money?
He tried it, but not at all. Yeah, I don't think it worked, right?
But that's a kind of hole that Brennan's digging for himself, where he's just completely, this case is blown up in his face, and he's setting a lot of the grenades there to do it. So he's become public enemy number one in that courtroom, I would say.
Yeah.
Is this not gonna? A juror is not gonna sit there and want to follow anything that this guy Brennan's saying anymore, Mike. I'm telling you, I cannot believe that he is not completely disintegrated this case before them. So,
and the fact that he brought in Aiden and Turtle Boy, knowing that, like, he's not going to put Aiden on the stand. Aiden's not going to. He doesn't want Aiden on the stand. I'm convinced of it. I think he'd be afraid if Aiden didn't plead the fifth. But I think that was almost like a Hail Mary. Like, he knows he's losing, so let's just try to dirty everything up and try to blame it all on Turtle Boy and try to make it about that. Instead of having Proctor be the boogeyman, let's try to make Aiden the boogeyman now. Let's try to. Does it feel like that to you? Like, do you think that's why he brought up that, or is he just trying to throw whatever's against the wall? Or it felt desperate to me.
It's a pull everything in the mud pit, muddy everything up, cause confusion. I mean, that's a defense job, is to cause confusion, but he's causing confusion intentionally because he thinks that's going to win him points with the jury, or else he doesn't care about the jury. It's like he's on a single track. I'm going to do what I want to be obnoxious, rude, and condescending, demeaning, and all these adjectives, like I said earlier. And he thinks he's going to win like that. I just don't see it happening. And the the thing is, I think here's what I think is maybe one of the ultimate gaslighting things. Tell me if I'm wrong on this, any of the audience here. But when he was saying that, when he brought up this question about well, did you see that big dumpster sitting out there in the yard? First of all, which dumpster where? He didn't give
Yeah.
any description. And then he shows him a picture. You see that dumpster here? And they're like, where's there a dumpster? It was so blurred video, and it showed like the squad car with all that melting snow and on the windshield and the wipers going. Or I guess it was a still photo, but it was so blurred. I didn't see any dumpster. Did you? So I just think it was a made up dumpster. And I think he's going to try to say, look, this big dumpster, that's not normally there. You didn't notice that. And yet you're going to notice, in comparison, a small body, or you're not going to notice a 20-yard roll-off dumpster or whatever he's saying was there. But I didn't see any dumpster there. And even if you would, it's like a dumpster is not going to leap out and hit your blade, and you're not going to kill it, right? Like an animal or a human. So that is definitely a sign of desperation. And so I think that the defense shortening their case in chief is a sign they sense the momentum factors on their side, and they need to not belabor this jury that's already made up their mind, which is the government's case is a joke.
Let's finish this up. Let's bring our best witnesses out.
Mm-hmm.
The final witness of the week was you want to say her name? I always screw this name up. Kara.
Kolo Keifus.
Oh, there we go. She was nice. I
Oh,
like her.
Kolo
She's
Keifus, sorry.
Yeah, very nice lady.
Yep. Yeah. So Karina, she was a pharmacist for about 30 years, lived in Canton for 22, married 24, and this is a good thing because, like I said, you always want to humanize your client, and she was a brilliant witness for doing this for the Karen Reed defense, because you could tell she did not turn on Karen. She still called her Karen. She did not call her the defendant. She likes Karen then, she likes Karen now, and she's a believer in her innocence. And that's what they cannot ask this witness, whether, hey, do you think Karen Reed is innocent? But it's obvious by her being there and calling her Karen and being friendly with Karen. And she was talking about how Karen did not seem intoxicated at all, seemed normal, right?
Yep.
And I think she also set the scene, and think about how Brenda was trying to block her testifying about who was off in the distance doing stuff in the bar, talking about basically Higgins, right?
Yes.
And in relation to John O'Keefe. So the prosecutor's blocking that, and the judge is keeping it out. So the jury has to understand this is all a rigged system here. I really think that, Mike.
I hope so. And she also talked about how John and Karen were very affectionate.
Right.
So much so that she noticed it with her husband and said, "Why aren't you like that with me?" Right? I mean,
she said that stood out because it's so rare for to see that. And so he's kissed her on the forehead. And it looked like it was actually in the videotape as she describes. It wasn't just her memory. It actually was in the video. And that hadn't been brought out before, right? The prosecution didn't want to show that. So I think it's very much, like I say, they have this positive momentum, extremely likable, trustworthy witnesses with high integrity. So think about that. Look what we have for those that actually are true defense witnesses. So the first one, that Jonathan Diamantis wasn't, because he's a friend of Proctor's. Then you got that Kelly Dever.
Kelly Dever, yeah.
And then she's the false memory officer. So that's not really, they're not really true pro defense witnesses, right? Those are impeachable type witnesses. But then you start out with Russell, Burrows, Loughran, and then Kolo Keifus. These are like people that really the jury can connect with, and that's what you want to do, is have people that are likable and positive, talking positive about your client or the facts that defend your client's innocence. So I think, and they're going to follow up with ARCA. I'm sure there's probably the ones we're going to see maybe Friday, because if they want to finish up Tuesday, I don't know if you can get both ARCAs done in 2 days. So maybe they'll start one of the ARCAs on Friday, and but or maybe Garrett, the dog bite guy. So anyway, it's going to be continuing success here with these witnesses. And think about it, Brennan is losing his mind because he's trying to like do everything he can to distort what these guys are saying, and he's just not scoring any points. He's striking out question after question after question, trying to put all these curveballs, misstate what they said, twist it around. He's trying to put their head on a swivel and just completely, batter them and bruise them up. And he's just striking out and missing every single shot he's taken. So it's as much as it's bad to see people being treated this way, in the end, Mike, I really believe that the jury system will work, and they'll do the right thing.
So, here's a question that just came in from Mrs. K. I haven't even read it. I just put it up there because she always asks good questions. So let's read it. I believe the jury knows what Brennan was trying with Lucky, afraid of blogger questioning line, and expose Brennan being disingenuous of all the witnesses. What do you think?
Ms. K, I agree with you, except I think they got this way before this time. I think the way he's been spinning stuff this whole trial, if it wasn't abundantly clear through his own case in chief, how he's trying to spin stuff and block defense questioning, just blocking defense questioning alone makes you look bad as a prosecutor. You're not trying to give Kieran Reed a fair trial. But I think when you see the way he treated Lucky and just came at him from so many different angles, trying to trip him up. And the thing is, what really shows that he's losing it from the accuracy standpoint is that he really thinks he's going to rattle this guy's testimony on what he saw and when he saw it. So he's trying to think that changing the timeline that Lucky started, when he started his shift and all that, he's trying to say, well, in the defense investigator statement, he says you started your shift at 11:30. Well, he's going to know his shift started at 2:30. He's not going to show up multiple hours and start driving before his shift happened. There wasn't even any snow at 11:30 that was worth snow plowing, right? So he doesn't think about those kind of things. So it's just like this single track thinking of like, I just got to take this hammer and sledgehammer, just keep beating these witnesses over the head. Eventually, I'm going to win. I'm going to bloody them all up, and they're going to look bad in front of the jury. No, it actually you look bad, and he has no self-awareness of how bad he's coming across. So, and think about it. If he's been losing his mind over these witnesses, just wait till Arca comes in there. he's not going to be able to contain himself. He's going to lose it. And you know what? I think the defense is just going to let him try to sledgehammer these last three experts and make a fool of himself even more so. And
I think he's going to lose it on Garrett Wing too.
Yeah, I mean, think about it though. These experts don't have the sympathy factor, right? So they can stand their ground. We've already seen it the way they did it, especially the way he's trying to beat up on Dr. Wolf. So Dr. Wolf is like just laughs at.
He was laughing at him.
Yeah,
wasn't he just like he's so like, oh, whatever, dude, you're ridiculous, you're a joke.
So imagine going out with these three witnesses. I mean, it's like you got it in the bag. I don't know how a jury member could not sit there and just think like, this thing, I've been gaslit this whole time by Brennan.
What a waste of time, right?
Yep.
What do you think about this? Marianne says, when Karen walks, will this become a cold case?
It probably will be for a while until something happens to break some up the conspiracy, maybe a divorce or somebody else gets in trouble for something and they want to cut a deal. And so it's probably going to be a cold case unless the feds get involved. I don't think you'll ever see the state attorneys, the DA's office getting involved in this unless Morrissey's replaced or something. But
2026, there'll be an election next
yeah,
year, so
but it's
hopefully,
really hard. It's really hard to prove conspiracies and stuff like that to
definitely.
get a conviction if you don't have at least one cooperating witness that's a defendant.
Hopefully it happens. Mr. Monk's understudy says, "What do you think Hank will do on their rebuttal?"
I think that I think what he's going to do is make a lot of bad strategy and tactical decisions again. And I think he's going to drag this thing out because I think in his mind, he thinks the longer I drag out a rebuttal, the more I'll get the jury to forget about the defense case in chief and how I was striking out. And what he doesn't realize is that he again doesn't have self-awareness. This jury has seen enough. They don't need any more rebuttal testimony from guys like Welcher or Burgess. I don't think he's going to call Burgess, but he's going to call Whiffen again. And all that. It's just I think the jury is saturated with all this technical data. And like I've been saying all along, it's like I don't trust the car data, the black box, the infotaine tracking and all that kind of stuff. It just it's not meant for that kind of purpose. And what I also was thinking about is that if anything, if anything's gonna if anything's gonna record something, it's gonna be along the lines of the vehicle hitting the curb as it's hitting John O'Keefe, if that really happened, right? Where's the event of the vehicle, maybe not striking John, but hitting the curb?
Yeah,
If you're going 24 miles an hour and you hit a curb and there's going to be such a big jolt like that, you're going to have some incident recorded, right?
exactly. Oh yeah, you could even have a bag open up. You know what do you call those? Crash bag if you hit it too hard. Yeah.
Well, in reverse, my understanding is in reverse, it never does that anyway. But
Okay.
so what happens though is here you have John. They've never explained how John's body got where it is, right? They've never explained other than him like getting sideswiped and falling back. But then the angle that he fell back, and we know he's got defensive wounds. So nothing the prosecution's saying. They've tried to connect even the taillight pieces. Think about what he was asking about Dr. Russell on, like, how did this, which was this? Was this a bite mark? Was it a claw mark? You don't know. Individually, you admit that you don't know that that's actually a dog bite mark, right? Well, no, if somebody's walked in the ER, you don't know, they're passed out, you don't know, or they're unconscious, you don't know, you just have two little marks on your arm. No one knows what that is for sure.
No.
Yeah, it could be a
You
dog
know,
mark. It could be, maybe it's scratched by a tree branch or something. You don't know. But when you got that whole pattern, then it's like, oh, this is right, crystal clear. This is what happened. The dog was attacking him. It's defensive wounds from a dog attack. So I think that it's gonna go again very well for the defense, and Hank is just going to wind up looking like an utter fool on his rebuttal. And I don't know that even the defense needs to call any sir rebuttal. And so where they call somebody to rebut what he's saying, because he's just out of ammo.
He's out of ammo.
Out of ammo.
When he had Russell up, I thought like one of the biggest mistakes he made was to actually put the picture of the arm up there again and say, "Oh, is this what?" Because it just again, and we had Jessica Machado on here just the other night, and she's a reporter in the courtroom, and she said the big difference between trial 1 and trial 2 is the size of the screen.
Oh,
last time you couldn't see that well. This time the screen is big and crisp, and everyone can see everything on that screen. So when they put that arm up there, they're seeing every detail of it. And to me, it just the longer you show that arm, the more likely I think you realize that, hey, that looks like a dog bite, dog scratch. Like what isn't that a mistake for him to put that up there on the screen?
everything he was doing is no self-awareness. He's like I say, he's digging a grave. His case is in the grave. It's well beyond 6 feet under right now, and he has no self-awareness. And he's stuck on his methodology of trying to trick witnesses into saying something that they don't mean to say. And if you have to rely on deception and trickery to to get a witness to say something you want to get out of them, that's you're not going to win that way with the jury. So I just don't know how this guy is successful as a lawyer when you resort to those kind of tactics. So obviously you've been doing that as defense counsel. So if you're doing that as a defense counsel or you don't have credibility in front of a jury, I I don't know. I don't know what his track record is for winning cases, but this is a method that he's using that I've never seen I've never seen this tactic be used to such an extreme. I mean, every single witness in his questioning is very calculated and it's very much um, load. It just reeks of trickery and deception, and so it's not gonna end well for him. That's my prediction, Mike. So that's why.
So I hope that
Uh,
I'm praying for that every night now, and every morning. Mr. Monk, I put all his questions up there because he's the one who brought us together. By the way, I
did,
always say
did
this every show. We love Mr. Monk's understudy, but he's wondering about this Rhode Island medical examiner, and other people have questions about other witnesses. Would you bring them out there, or would you just stick, like you said, to the less is more at this point?
then here's the thing: if you could just narrow him to that one issue, then you'd probably want to bring somebody like that. But I don't know. Like I say, if you got Brennan that's going to go through this goat rodeo and just make it turn into a 5 hour cross examination, even though he's digging his own grave, I think that you want to have more positive momentum. So I don't know that gets you that much mileage. If with a guy like Brennan, with a normal prosecutor, yeah, bring up everybody you want and get them on and off the stand quick. But Brennan is like just trying to hold on to these witnesses for so long. He's thinking the longer I beat on them, the more points I'm going to score with the jury, and he doesn't know that. So the more damning they are, the more he's going to try to try to do that technique. So if there is that one out of Rhode Island, that medical examiner, if you just brought up that one thing, yeah, I just think the judge is going to let him to cross-examine him on everything. Because keep in mind, Russell was cross-examined on everything: accident reconstruction, the tail lights, the debris field, all this kind of stuff. The Sally Port. I mean, he tried to beat her down with all areas of the case, right?
Yeah,
And he made her an expert in everything,
he did.
even beyond what the defense tried to do. So that's why he's just. It's just really bizarre. The guy obviously has intelligence to be able to keep in mind all these ways to try to trick people, right? But it's not a winning formula. It's not a winning, successful formula with a jury. So unless the jury's
Uh,
completely out to lunch, Mike, and I'm just not understanding people up there in that part of the country. Hmm?
I hope not. I hope they're not completely out to lunch. Seemed like the first jury was a little bit, I gotta say. That's what gets me
Well,
worried.
yeah, but you got to keep in mind you had an officer there as foreman
True.
that was directing traffic, telling them what to think and what to discard. And I know that has a huge impact when you have somebody that's acting like they know how is really working behind the scenes, and they're making the defense out to be the shysters. Then
That's good
that's pretty
work.
much the norm. So I don't look at that as a normal jury by any means.
All right. Well, let's hope that's not this way. Diana and a couple of people had some similar questions to this.
Hmm.
I also want to ask about like the jury instructions because the defense has asked, for a couple of statements be made apparently about the missing witnesses. Um, and there's also with this FBI thing involved, like the jury definitely has to be thinking about the FBI at this point or the feds or whoever they think it is. Um, I worry that they're going to now think that it's Turtle Boy and Karen Reed the feds are investigating instead of these other these other folks. What can the defense do to make sure that the FBI issue doesn't come back to bite them?
Well, that's why I think it's important they renew the issue with ARCA being hired by the FBI, because they were taking a neutral standpoint and they basically were investigating the investigators, right? So that's
Yeah.
why they want to keep the FBI out of this. But I think that bringing out the FBI with Archer is a way to neutralize it and also show it's like a somewhat a closed investigation. But the defense is not going to be able to bring out the fact that the FBI was being brought in to investigate the
Morrissey.
Commonwealth, right?
Yeah.
So that's why no way are they going to get that out there. But I think the fact that they know FBI has been interviewing people is a good thing. And if the state is already going after Karen within 16 hours, they decided she was the one that was going to be targeted with this murder charge. Why would the feds even get involved, right? So that's where common sense, if they really start thinking, why would FBI be involved if it's Karen got arrested right away? They're not going to prosecute Karen, so who are they really looking to prosecute?
Exactly. I hope there's someone in there that's a thinker that understands how the world works too. Um, yeah, I just think the jury needs to know. Unfortunately, I don't think they're going to be allowed to know. Um, let's talk about these jury instructions because they're asking for the missing witnesses. These, I forget what they call them, but you know what this is about. What do you think the judge is going to do here?
I would say the judge on anything that makes sense, she's just going to probably do the opposite. So she's going to protect it, keep it out, because like I've been saying all along, this is not a prosecution where they're trying to make sure the conviction sticks if they get one. They're just throwing everything at Karen, unconstitutional or not. They don't care, and they have to know they're violating the Constitution on a repeated basis. So, and if they're doing that on a repeated basis, day in day out, denying her a fair trial, then why would they do it? Doesn't matter. It's going to be automatically bust on appeal if she gets convicted of something. So why not just keep out instructions that are helpful to the defense? You want to muddy up the waters, make it confusing, or leave gaps that don't cover an explanation on anything like witnesses and evidence.
I'm wondering about this the final closing statements. The judge is only giving them 1 hour apiece. Have you ever seen that before for a murder trial?
No, it's really mind-boggling. But if that's all they're going to be given, and I know they're going to be asking for more, at least for maybe 2 hours, or at a minimum, you need 90 minutes, just because you need probably 15 minutes to cover jury instructions, right? 12 to 15 minutes is what I think that I would want to walk them through what the language means, what the burden of proof means, how they haven't established these elements of the crime, and also different other instructions on credibility witnesses and stuff like that. So you really want to have that available time to go through that kind of stuff and walk the dog, as I call it, on how you come up with a not guilty across the board. But um, I think the one thing that's helpful, if this is an hour for each side, is that normally in other states in a federal court, you have the defense goes after the prosecution's closing argument. Here in Massachusetts, you guys got it really weird, where just the defense goes first and then the Commonwealth, and that's it. There's no rebuttal. So this is really strange. I've never seen it that way before. And I think that works to the prosecutor's advantage, because they sort of like can lie in wait and sort of ambush the defense with, oh, hey, we come up with this argument, we come up with that, and defense is like going, well, we don't have time to counter what they said, and so it leaves an unfair advantage, I think, to the prosecution to have the last say. It's one thing if you have the last say as a rebuttal. It's another thing if you have the last say and defense never heard your initial argument, right? So defense is going in there cold, not knowing anything what they're going to argue, other than what they expect, of course, Brendan to argue, because it's going to follow along with his opening. But I think that when you look at the opening of what Brennan said, he never got really into any specifics and of how John O'Keefe actually was struck. And it seems like he sort of like made this up as you went along. And then you have Welcher, the Mr. Blue Man, as I call him, in his absolutely laughable type expertise and how he described John O'Keefe was injured. And so I think it's really something that rather than listening to Brennan for 2 hours and the jury wanting to poke their eyes out, I think I always want to get this case to the jury quicker. And so I think the jury knows it. I really think they get it by now, and they've already made up their mind. So I think ARCA is, if they didn't call any more witnesses, I think they'd come back not guilty across the board. You don't actually need ARCA right now. ARCA is just icing on the cake.
That's what we all want to hear. I can't wait till this is over. It's been a long run. Carl, I want to thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else that we didn't get to bring up today, or anything you wanted to discuss about this case, or even other cases that you're following, or even maybe some of your clients? I don't know, or anything you want to promote?
No, no, I just think that this is the most extreme case you'll see of injustice. I can't imagine more of a system that where you have the judge so on one side and making rulings that are so counter to the Constitution, and the prosecutor is being out of control. Because keep in mind why this is not the norm, because there's no prosecutor's office that's going to try a case where they knowingly are throwing it into in automatic reversal mode, okay, where they violate so many constitutional rights of the defendant that they don't care whether they win an appeal or not, but they're willing to do that. That's why they hired Brennan, because they knew he's going to be doing this kind of tactics on the defense. They knew the judge would be rubber stamping everything. So when you have a prosecutor that's going to leave this job and go back to something else, or maybe he's going to be promoted to a judgeship or something for doing all the political work for Morrissey and the judge. So that's why I think that this is a extremely rare case. I don't think there's going to be anything like it that you'll ever cover on issues of injustice, and really where the prosecutor and the judge are the main focal point of the case so much, because really the judge should just be behind the scenes, not really becoming an issue, a lightning rod of criticism, right? But here it's like you got a judge as lightning rod of criticism. I don't think we'll have another judge that's like this for many years, nor a specially appointed prosecutor that's just in it to win it only. This the due process not be considered whatsoever. And keep in mind, what did Morrissey say? Why he was hiring Brennan? To make sure Karen Reed gets a fair trial.
That's right.
So it's been anything but fair, and that's exactly why. Just look at what they're saying. It's usually the opposite, and it's something they're doing,
Yeah.
right? So
It's like 1984. It's just like an Animal Farm, you know? Just like new rules today. Every day there's a new rule. There's a change history. Um, yeah. Thank you so much, Carl, for being here. This is
thanks, Mike.
amazing to have you again. Make sure everyone follows attorney Carl Steinbeck. It's True Crime at True Crime Law on X on Twitter. Make sure you follow there. He's on Carl at Carl Steinbeck on YouTube. We get that pinned in the chat. There's also TikTok, Carl Steinbeck on TikTok. Any other places people can follow you as well, to Carl?
No, that's it. My I just do the YouTube. My brother does all the shorts. My brother John does all the shorts and the TikTok stuff and the X stuff as well. So anyway,
He's doing a good job. I'm envious. I'm like, I need a guy like John. You got all the great clips up there every day. I'm like, Carl's got another banger. People share them. So you're both of you guys, Carl and John. Good work. Thank you so much for everything you're doing for Karen Reed, and for all the people that you support. Because I know that you're really about justice. That's what you care about more than anything else, and doing the right thing. And I can't thank you enough. I'm so glad I met you, Carl.
thanks, bud. Glad to be on here with you.
And stay cool. Stay cool in Texas out there.
All right.
I know it's a hot season. You have a
All
great
right.
weekend. We'll talk soon, Carl.
You too. Take care. Thanks.
Thank you. That's Carl Steinbeck, attorney. He spent 2 hours with us again. Phenomenal. So lucky I have these great experts on this show. I'm always smiling because I don't know what I'll do when this is over because it's like I'll miss my cool experts every night to talk about this case, but I'll be glad when it's over because somebody's life is at risk right now, and I want to see justice done. One of the things that came up in one of my comments in the chat, I guess in the YouTube, it's it sparked something with me maybe a little bit, but even more with a couple people that I'm friends with hit me up and they said, Mike, you got to tell who you are a little more on the show because a lot of my followers have come on over the last year or two, maybe even the last week. Every week we get like 5,000 new people. So, one of the things I was talking about with Jessica Machado was about being admitted as a journalist to the court. And some people are questioning my journalism bona fides. And I'll just say, it's true, I don't do a lot of journalism, especially like written journalism. But for years I did. I was a print written journalist. Uh, Weekly Dig Boston is the publication in Boston that I used to write for every week. I had a weekly column. It was journalism and some kind of commentary. Um, Really, I started more journalism at first, like even before Dig Boston. I had a blog, I had a website, and then Dig Boston happened. And I was, pretty well known in Boston, especially in the cannabis scene, but even in the local politics. I did a lot of journalism. So I'm going to actually post a story so you can kind of get an idea. So people know my background. This is back from, put this one up here. Hold on one second. So this is probably a story that I was got some traction for me. And it kind of led to some bigger stories that happened later. And this is really about the cannabis scene. This is in 2018. And basically, I was the first one in Massachusetts, and pretty much the first one on the East Coast, and pretty much one of the first ones in the nation talking about this legal moldy cannabis issue and about people getting sick from legal cannabis that I wanted. We all wanted it. But when it got implemented, workers started getting sick. And this is one of the stories back in 2018 I reported on. And basically, in this story, you have a bunch of cannabis workers telling us how workers are getting sick at these places because they don't have proper ventilation. Some people have asthma. Some people have allergies to the dust. And the drying process with the cannabis on a large commercial scale without proper ventilation gets people sick. And some of these workers actually predicted that somebody was going to die. And then a 27-year-old worker did die in Massachusetts. And I was the first one to report that story. And I was the first one to have the family on my show discussing it. We got reprinted hundreds of times. And this is just like one story I covered over probably 20 years. So I have covered a lot of local stories. I know a lot of you aren't aware of it because, it's mostly a cannabis niche field. If you're not involved in cannabis, you wouldn't know. Cannabis people know, obviously, but the non-cannabis people don't know. So I just want to let you know so you kind of have a background on who I am a little more and where I come from. And I just thought it was a good idea to share since it came up yesterday. And hold on one second. All right. So this is one of the awards I won. What is this one? This one is the actually we'll do it this way, right? Does that look better? Yeah, this is an award I won at the cannabis convention. It's the largest cannabis convention on the East Coast. And it's a poll. It's basically the audience decides, the industry decides. And in 2018, they voted for me. There were four finalists. I won Best News Information Source, the Young Jurks, 2018. I also won another award, same convention. These are huge conventions at the Hine Convention Center. It was the best podcast. So that's kind of some of my bona fides. I could show you more. If you want to look at Dig Boston, you'll find hundreds of stories in journalism that I wrote. So that's kind of my background. I also have a financial background. I used to be a financial advisor. So I just to let people know that so you know who I am. Some people question, who are you? You're just a dog walker. Yeah, I am. I am just a dog walker, but I have a I have a varied experience, and like I said, I had an editor for over a decade, and he went to the Columbia School of Journalism. I've interviewed four U.S. Congress reps, a U.S. senator, DAs, district attorneys, assistant district attorneys, state reps, state senators, U.S. attorney. So I do have that kind of journalism background, even though I do give a lot of commentary here. And mostly what I do now is I just interview some of the experts. That's what I like to do. And I don't like to talk about myself or toot my horn too much, but I feel like sometimes I have to because of some of the comments I get. I just want people to know who I am. Melanie says, I am really worried about the jury. They don't know about the first trial. They don't have the benefit of hearing conversations like this. How confident are you about this jury? That's the thing, Melanie. None of us know. I mean, unless we're in the jury box. The thing about that I do know from folks like Jessica and Aiden, it seems like this jury is tuned in, and it seems like this jury probably does know what's going on. So that's the key. I mean, that is the wild card. That's what none of us know. How is the jury taking all this? I hope it's a better jury than the last one. That's all I gotta say. I mean, you don't know. That is the big question, Melanie. But one of the things, Melanie, I feel comfort on, especially having Carl here, is to explain the fact that he doesn't think Brennan is checking in with the jury at all. That's like hosting a YouTube show, and you never look at the chat. Like that's one of the if you're doing a YouTube live show and you never check your chat and you're trying to convince the chat of things, you're like that would be dumb, right? Even running a YouTube show and not looking at your chat is not it's kind of the same thing as being an attorney and not looking at the jury, right? Not checking in with the jury. So I think that's a good sign for us, for the defense, that Hank probably isn't that good at this. I mean, that's if I was a defense attorney or a prosecutor, that's what I'd be trying to check in all the time with the jury. That's one of the things that I think makes a lot of the shows better is the audience. The audience kind of tells us what they like and what they don't like, right? It's the same thing with the jury. I mean, they're not going to be able to tell you, write some comments out and tell you, but they're telling you with their body language. So that the fact that Hank doesn't even seem to recognize that that's part of his job is actually very good for the defense. I think that was a great insight tonight from Carl. I love the different attorneys that come on. Bettero, we had Nan last night, Carl Steinbeck, because they always give me just different little pieces and insights that I wasn't thinking about. Mr. Monk's understudy, thank you so much for your donation tonight. And Anna Banana, thank you. I also want to thank Mary Ann and Nicta Dicta. Where are the socks? I want to thank Kathleen as well for her super chat tonight. This is a good question. Can juries' notebooks be obsessed and read by anyone? They're not supposed to be. And I've heard the same that the clerk collects the notebooks. Yes. I know that they're not supposed to be assessed and read. That's one of the concerns that came up last trial. Thank you, Sherry D. Thank you, Sherry D, for always being here. Christian from Manhattan, thank you so much for the super chat tonight. And EB, thank you for the super chat. And Grifton Gamer. I should have read this one earlier. As a cop, it's easy to see the right through her. She lied over and over again, and the canned statement she volunteered on the stand was like the final nail of proving the cover up. Also, I make 38,000 LMAO. So you're a cop and you make 38,000. Wow, maybe you should move to Massachusetts. Move to Canton. They're looking. They're hiring. Grifting Gamer, if you ever want to come on here and anonymously talk, hit me up. I want to know where you're a cop now. I that's a funny thing. I wonder what all the other cops think, that are watching this. Like all the Boston police officers that, they all watch this. What are they thinking? I bet they're thinking like Grifton Gamer. Tammy, thank you so much, Tammy. Can we get a total count of how many FBI or grand jury, how many people told the FBI or the grand jury a different story, but their memory is better today? I know how many of them. There's been quite a few of them, huh? We do need a count on that, Tammy. You are correct. Somebody's got to do the math in the chat. How many people have changed their story and then said their memory got better with time? Thank you, Mono88. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Sherry D. I love it too. I love the array of topics and guests. I do. I think I'm going to close out the show by playing. I want to play her again. I just can't. Actually, no. I'm not going to play. I was going to play Devers. I'm gonna play the dude. I'm gonna play Barrows. I wanna watch I either want to watch one of the two cops. Like, do we want to watch the good cop or the bad cop? I do have to go walk a customer dog tonight. I picked up. I did it again, folks. I picked up another elderly lady with a broken hip. I'm walking her dog or car around the clock. I am a bleeding heart. I can never say no. I wanted to go to court tomorrow instead. I'm walking dogs again. But so I'm gonna play this video. I guess. Do you want Barrows or Deva? I think I'm gonna do Barrows. Let's watch the hero. We don't want to watch the zero to end the show. I never give myself time off. No, I don't. I never do. It's true. I'll have time off when I'm gone. Yeah, we all want to see Barrows. We'll do Barrows then. This is what I want to watch. I want to watch Barrows one more time. This is the moment that I get so excited when he said, "Absolutely not. Absolutely not." All American hero here.
Face the clock and raise your right hand.
Mr. Solomon, swear the evidence you give to the court and jury in the case down here and the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. Maybe see.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to step out for 1 second, for a quick break, but I'll be back. You know how I do this. I'm going to play this for a little bit, but I will definitely be back.
All right, Mr. Jackson, you are all set.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon, sir.
Could you please state your full name, spell your last name for the jurors, please?
Nicholas Barrows, Barros.
And where do you currently work?
The town of Dighton, Dighton Police Department,
How long have you worked for the Dighton Police Department, sir?
since 2011.
And what's your position there currently?
Currently, I am a sergeant.
What's your duty assignment as a sergeant? What do you do?
I supervise the 4 to midnight shift.
We'll get to that in a little bit more detail in just a second. A couple of more foundational questions. How long have you been a police officer altogether?
Since 2011, so going 14 years.
And what education and training and background do you have that qualifies you to do your duties as a sergeant, a supervisor at the Dighton Police Department?
I completed the police academy. I hold a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I've been to many trainings as a police officer and as a supervisor.
When did you get your bachelor's degree?
2012.
Is the Dighton Police Department an autonomous police department for the city? In other words, is it a branch of, say, for instance, Massachusetts State Police, or is it an autonomous department?
It's on its own.
Okay. It's not in any way connected to the Canton Police Department, I presume?
Correct.
Is it in any way connected to the Massachusetts State Police
It
Department?
is not.
As a supervisor, are part of your duties to oversee subordinate officers in their daily fare, whatever that may be?
Yes,
Does that include anything having to do with crime scene investigation,
to an extent.
witness interviews,
No, that would be the Detective Bureau.
What about working and coordinating with detectives?
To an extent,
Collection of evidence or working with detectives as they collect evidence?
they would collect evidence.
Maintaining crime scene protocols, things of that nature?
Correct.
All right. As a sergeant with the Dighton Police Department, are you a trained observer?
I am.
Would you consider all of your subordinates, the patrol officers, day-to-day officers, are they also trained observers?
They are.
Is that part of policing?
It is.
Describe that a little bit for the jurors so we understand.
We are in the police academy. We're told to watch everything. It's our heads on a swivel. We are always looking because we don't know what the unknown is.
When you say you don't know, is it true that you don't necessarily know what might become relevant later
Correct.
that may be needed in court?
Correct.
I want to draw your attention to January of 2022, a few years ago. January 29th, 2022, did you have any, you personally, officer, did you have any personal relationship with the Canton Police Department?
I did not.
Did you have any personal relationship with a trooper from the Massachusetts State Police named Michael Proctor?
I did not.
Do you have any relationship with a person by the name of Brian Higgins, an ATF agent?
I did not.
Do you have any relationship with a Boston police officer known as Brian Albert?
I did not.
Did you know any of the witnesses or individuals involved in an ongoing investigation related to the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe?
I did not.
On January 29th, 2022, did you receive some sort of a call to respond to a particular location? I don't want the address of the location. We'll get to that in a second. Did you receive some sort of a call in the afternoon?
I did.
Describe that for the jurors, please.
Around 2:30 in the afternoon, I received a call from the troopers assigned to the Norfolk District County DA's office in regards to a vehicle that was at a residence in the town of Dighton.
What were you asked to do? Why did you get that call?
The troopers said that they were coming into my jurisdiction, and as a courtesy, they wanted me to respond with them.
Is that sort of normal protocol? If you go into somebody else's jurisdiction, you let them know?
Yes.
So that was not necessarily unusual.
No.
About what time did you receive that first call?
The first call was around 2:30 in the afternoon.
Was there are logs kept of those kinds of things? If you get a call, you respond to
Yes.
location?
Yes.
At some point after you received that first call, did you receive any other call specifying a time of arrival for the MSP troopers, anything like that?
I did.
Describe that for us.
I got a second call around 3 p.m. From Trooper Michael Proctor stating that he was about 10 minutes away from the address in Dighton.
At the point that you spoke with Michael Proctor, had you ever spoken to him in your professional or personal capacity ever before?
Never.
Did you know the name? Did you know who he was?
I did not.
Complete stranger.
Complete stranger.
What time did you actually arrive at the residence?
I arrived at the residence, I believe it was 3:27 p.m.
Sergeant Barrows, I don't want the address, the cameras are rolling. Did you respond specifically to a residence in the city of Dighton?
Yes,
Did you at that time know who lived at that residence, who resided there?
I did.
How did you know that?
Early in the shift, when I came on at 8 a.m., the midnight shift, the outgoing shift, had told me that a resident of Dighton at that address had called looking for a ride to Brockton Hospital.
Who did you know at that time, or who did you believe at that time to live at the address that you are now responding to?
William Reed.
That was Reed, R-E-A-D?
Correct.
Okay. Did you know anything about his daughter at that time, or did you just know the name William Reed?
I just knew William Reed, the
Okay.
name.
At the time that Michael Proctor called you, did he say anything about what his intentions were once he arrived at the location?
Yes, his intention was to retrieve a vehicle that he said was involved in a homicide.
Did he specifically say to you at 3 o'clock-ish in the afternoon he intended to seize the vehicle?
I believe the first phone call, that was his intention.
Meaning all the way back to 2:30.
30 is when he first called me and said that they were coming to Dighton to retrieve a vehicle that occurred in a homicide in Canton.
And you understood that to mean what? Retrieve a vehicle.
Seize.
Thank you. What was your role once you arrived at the scene at the Reed household?
My role was Trooper Michael Proctor asked me to facilitate a tow to tow that vehicle.
Was that a private tow company?
Yes.
And when you say facilitated tow, what does that mean?
He asked who we used for towing vehicles, and during that period of time, it was Diamond Towing.
Did Diamond Towing ultimately show up, a representative of that
They did.
tow company with a tow truck?
Correct.
A flatbed?
Yes.
Who was with Trooper Proctor when you arrived at the scene?
Sergeant Buchanan.
Had you ever met Sergeant Buchanan before?
Never.
Did you know him?
Nope.
Do you know him professionally or personally?
Never.
Had you ever spoken to him?
Never.
Ever? I'm so sorry. It's getting late in the day, and I guess I'm going too fast. Sorry, my fault. Let's start that just a little bit slower. Did you know him?
No.
Had you ever spoken to him before?
No.
Had you ever heard his name before?
No.
No relationship whatsoever.
None.
Same with Trooper Proctor.
Correct.
Once you arrived at the residence, did you have an opportunity to see the vehicle that was the focus of Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Buchanan's attention?
Yes, once I arrived and I parked my cruiser at the end of the driveway, I observed a black Lexus SUV in the driveway.
What were you driving?
I was driving a Ford F-150 police cruiser.
A police cruiser that's a Ford F-150?
Correct.
They have those?
Yes.
Cool. Were you in full uniform?
Full uniform.
Gun, badge, the whole works.
The whole works.
Did you ever go inside the house?
Briefly,
What was the circumstance of going inside the house?
I went inside to let the troopers know that the tow truck operator was there. And I also went in to ask how we're going to get the tow truck into the driveway because there was about a foot of snow.
Okay. That sort of answers my next question. Did you see whether or not Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Buchanan actually did go inside the residence?
Yes, they did.
For the bulk of the time that they were in the residence, where were you?
Outside the residence.
Were you with the black SUV?
I was in the garage speaking to the defendant's mother.
The defendant's mom?
Yes.
Janet? Okay.
Yes.
Where was the SUV at this point?
In the driveway.
Did you have an opportunity to see the SUV?
I did.
Did you walk all the way around it?
Not all the way around.
Did you see the rear end of it?
I did.
Did you make note of the rear end of it?
Yes.
How long would you say you were at the location in a position to observe the rear end of that SUV?
The
2
whole-
minutes, 20 minutes, something in between? Longer?
I would say not the entire time that I was there, but a good amount of time.
More than a glance.
Yes.
This is the afternoon of January 29th, 2022, correct?
Correct.
Before the vehicle had been seized formally by Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Buchanan, correct?
Correct.
Did you observe anything of note about the rear end of that black SUV?
Yes, I noted in a report that there was damage to the taillight,
Can you describe for the juror, by the way, which taillight are we talking about?
the right rear taillight.
Can you describe for the jurors what you noted in terms of the damage to the right rear taillight?
I noted that the report said that there was right rear damage to that taillight.
When you say damage, have you ever described that damage previously?
I have.
Can you tell us what that
Yep.
description is?
There was, it was damaged, the taillight was damaged, but there was a crack missing, but it was not completely damaged.
When you say there was a crack, do you mean there was a piece missing?
A piece was missing.
Can you describe for the jurors kind of what that piece looked like, how big it was, how small, the shape, as you call it?
The piece was about maybe this big,
Is that maybe the size of a dollar bill, maybe 6 inches?
6 inches. or
And
so.
how wide?
Maybe that wide, maybe 3 inches, 2 inches, somewhere in
Okay.
there.
want to show you a photo. Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would like to show Exhibit 13. It's been previously marked. Do you see what's depicted in this photograph?
I do.
What does that appear to be, just generally?
The right rear tail light.
Of what?
The Lexus SUV.
Is that consistent with the black Lexus SUV that you saw at the Reed residence?
That was the black Lexus. That was not the tail light the day I was there.
Can you do me a favor, Mr. Wolk? With the court's permission, could we zoom in on the right rear taillight, please?
Okay.
Do you see the condition of that taillight as it's depicted in this photo?
I do.
Sergeant Barrows, is this the condition of the right rear taillight when you showed up at the Reed household at around 3:15 in the afternoon on January 29th, 2022?
Absolutely not.
What's different about this photo, sir?
I just rewound it. I'm so spazzing. Oh. Absolutely not. That was it. That's all we needed to hear. Absolutely not. Oh man, you can't. I went to another video. That's so funny. I had the right video up, but that was the moment. I don't even know if do we need to play anymore? Do we?
House?
Briefly.
Here.
What was the circumstance of going inside the house?
I went inside. No.
Had you ever heard his name before?
No.
Meaning all the way back to 2:30.
30 is when he first called me and said that they were coming to Dighton to retrieve a vehicle that occurred in a homicide in Canton.
And you understood that to mean what? Retrieve a vehicle.
Seize.
Thank you. What was your role once you arrived at the scene at the Reed household?
My role was Trooper Michael Proctor asked me to facilitate a tow.
Comment. Worship Master said, "Don't underestimate the evil of the court. They're reading the jury notes and picking the alternates already. I'm sure Bev told Hank not to worry about the jury, her and Morrissey and Jim Habit. It sucks that we have to think like that. Like normally I would just say, you're crazy. There's no way that's happening. But we've seen so much in court, it's hard not to think like that. So I totally get it. We'll see what happens. If they try any, I have a feeling if they try any of the shenanigans they did last time, it's going to be a lot harder. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We shall see. I hate that we even have to think like that, but that's where we're at.
To tow that vehicle.
Was that a private tow company?
Yes.
And when you say facilitate a tow, what does that mean?
He asked who we used for towing vehicles, and during that period of time, it was Diamond Towing.
Did Diamond Towing ultimately show up, a representative of that
They did.
tow company with a tow truck?
Correct.
A flatbed?
Yes.
Who was with Trooper Proctor when you arrived at the scene?
Sergeant Buchanan.
Had you ever met Sergeant Buchanan before?
Never.
Did you know him?
Nope.
Did you know him professionally or personally?
Never.
Had you ever spoken to him?
Never.
Ever? I'm so sorry. It's getting late in the day, and I guess I'm going too fast. Sorry, my fault. Let's start that just a little bit slower. Did you know him?
No.
Had you ever spoken to him before?
No.
Had you ever heard his name before?
No.
No relationship whatsoever.
None.
Same with Trooper Proctor.
Correct.
Once you arrived at the residence, did you have an opportunity to see the vehicle that was the focus of Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Buchanan's attention?
Yes, once I arrived and I parked my cruiser at the end of the driveway, I observed a black Lexus SUV in the driveway.
What were you driving?
I was driving a Ford F-150 police cruiser.
A police cruiser that's a Ford F-150?
Correct.
They have those?
Yes.
Cool. Were you in full uniform?
Full uniform.
Gun, badge, the whole works.
The whole works.
Like Jackson's like,
Did you ever go
cool.
inside the house?
Briefly.
What was the circumstance of going inside the house?
I went inside to let the troopers know that the tow truck operator was there, and I also went in to ask how we're going to get the truck into the driveway because there was about a foot of snow.
Okay. That sort of answers my next question. Did you see whether or not Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Buchanan actually did go inside the residence?
Yes, they did.
For the bulk of the time that they were in the residence, where were you?
Outside the residence.
Were you with the black SUV?
I was in the garage speaking to the defendant's mother.
The defendant's mom?
Yes.
Janet? Okay.
Yes.
Where was the SUV at this point?
In the driveway.
Did you have an opportunity to see the SUV?
I did.
Did you walk all the way around it?
Not all the way around.
Did you see the rear end of it?
I did.
Did you make note of the rear end of it?
Yes.
How long would you say you were at the location in a position to observe the rear end of that SUV? 2 minutes, 20 minutes, something in between? Longer?
I would say not the entire time that I was there, but a good amount of time.
More than a glance.
Yes.
This is the afternoon of January 29th, 2022, correct?
Correct.
Before the vehicle had been seized formally by Trooper Proctor and Sergeant Buchanan, correct?
Correct.
Did you observe anything of note about the rear end of that black SUV?
Yes, I noted in a report that there was damage to the taillight,
Can you describe for the juror, by the way, which taillight are we talking about?
the right rear taillight.
Can you describe for the jurors what you noted in terms of the damage to the right rear taillight?
I noted that the report said that there was right rear damage to that taillight.
When you say damage, have you ever described that damage previously?
I have.
Can you tell us what that
Yep.
description is?
There was, it was damaged, the taillight was damaged, but there was a crack missing, but it was not completely damaged.
When you say there was a crack, do you mean there was a piece?
This in a report. You notice that it was actually in a report. Unlike all these other jokers, this local town cop, it wasn't even his case. He did more investigation. He's just supposed to be there just to supervise the tow. You know what I mean? Just guard the vehicle. And he put it in a report. This guy deserves all the all the accolades he's getting. Canton Police Department's looking for a police chief. They should probably ask this guy to take the job.
Piece missing?
A piece was missing.
Can you describe for the jurors kind of what that piece looked like, how big it was, how small, the shape, as you call it?
The piece was about maybe this big,
Is that maybe the size of a dollar bill, maybe 6 inches?
6 inches. or
And
so.
how wide?
Maybe that wide, maybe 3 inches, 2 inches, somewhere in
Okay.
there.
I want to show you a photo. Your Honor, with the court's permission, I would like to show Exhibit 13.
Now, this is so devastating. I saw trolls in some of the chats for some of the anti-Karen Reed people, and they were saying, well, just because they cracked the taillight, it's just because they knew Karen was guilty and they wanted to make sure there was even more evidence against her. So they're basically admitting that they now believe, some of these trolls now believe the police broke the taillight, but they did it for a good reason. They framed Karen because she was already guilty. That's I mean, think about that. That is the rationale, the thinking for some of these trolls who say Karen's guilty. This is what they've come up with. That the police were justified in planting taillight and breaking taillight because Karen was guilty. It wasn't the right thing or the smart thing to do, but hey, Karen's still guilty, even though the cops broke the taillight. I mean, that was some of the comments. You can look on Twitter. Somebody captured those. I saw those today. I was laughing so hard on that one. They don't make any sense. You can call that cognitive dissonance. It's crazy. They'll go through all these hoops.
It's been previously marked.
And here it is. We'll celebrate again.
Do you see what's depicted in this photograph?
I do.
What does that appear to be, just generally?
The right rear tail light,
Of what?
the Lexus SUV.
Is that consistent with the black Lexus SUV that you saw at the Reed residence?
That was the black Lexus. That was not the tail light the day I was there.
Was
Can you
not.
do me a favor, Mr. Walk, with the court's permission, could we zoom in on the right rear taillight, please?
Okay.
Was not the tail light on the day I was there. That is so definitive. That's not even a question. That is done deal. One of you just commented the means justify the ends. Yeah, here it is. This is how those trolls act. Gen X girl lawyer, you got it right. The old saying, the ends justify the means. That's exactly what these trolls are all about. The anti-Karen Reed. All they care about is getting what's theirs, their end, which is framing Karen Reed. This is such a great moment. I could watch this over and over and over again. Barrows is a hero.
Do you see the condition of that taillight as it's depicted in this photo?
I do.
Sergeant Barrows, is this the condition of the right rear taillight when you showed up at the Reed household at around 3:15 in the afternoon on January 29th, 2022?
Absolutely not.
What's different about this photo, sir?
That tail light is completely smashed out.
There you go. Game over. Game over. This is it. That should be the end
Does
of
it
the
appear
trial.
that there are additional
That should
pieces-
be the end of the trial. If we had a real judge, that is it right there. That's it. And even the trolls know it. Remember how they used to, Kevin always says, Mike, you know Karen's innocent. You just don't have the guts to support. You know Karen's guilty, you would say. Kevin Yellow Cottage Shell. You know Karen's guilty. You don't have the guts. They don't have the guts. And some of them obviously are McAlberts, so there's a reason why they'll never admit it. Game over.
Of taillight that are removed from this taillight condition than when you saw it at the Reed residence. Objection.
Sustained. Ask it differently, Mr. Jackson.
Of course. Describe specifically, other than the fact that it's different, describe in detail for the jurors what is different about this taillight as it's photographed here.
That middle section was intact when I was there. Towards that right side where that large chunk is, that's what was missing.
I'm going to hand you a green laser pointer. If you can, there's two displays, one monitor directly in front of you and one to your right. If you could use the one to your right, it's a little easier on the jurors. Describe what's different about that taillight.
Can you see that? So this area was intact. This is what I saw was missing here.
May I approach?
Yes.
If the entire taillight had been broken out as it's depicted in this photograph, would you have made note of that?
Sustained.
Do you believe you would remember if the taillight, well, let me ask it a different way. The piece that you saw missing, but not completely damaged, is the reason that you use the phrase not completely damaged to highlight the fact that there was still more taillight attached to the vehicle than is depicted in this photo.
Sustained.
We can take this down. As you sit here and recall back to that, your observations, and you observed this for over the course of how long would you say? How many minutes?
Probably 20 minutes or so.
You actually wrote a report about this, correct?
Correct.
And you documented your observations, correct?
Correct.
In your documented observations, did you use the phrase cracked but not completely damaged?
I did not.
Sustained.
You've testified previously,
I have?
about a year ago.
Yes.
Did you use the phrase cracked but not completely damaged then?
The objection sustained, Mr. Jackson.
Ultimately, was the black Lexus SUV towed and cleared from the scene?
It was.
Is it your responsibility or part of your responsibility to log the time that things like this happen? Like, for instance, the SUV is taken away?
When I cleared from the scene, yes.
What time was that when you cleared the scene?
I believe it was 4:17 p.m.
Suffice it to say that SUV was not seized at a later time, correct?
Correct.
It was not seized at 5:30 p.m.
No.
Savings
I'd
time.
like to show you
people.
another exhibit, if I could. This is exhibit 105.
See, this is another good point. I hope the jury picked up the time differential between Proctor's report and what time the car was actually towed.
Do you recognize this scene generally?
I do.
Do you recognize it as being, what do you recognize as being?
This is the Reed residence.
Do you see some vehicles in that still shot on video?
I do.
Describe what you see.
That tow truck is Diamond Towing, and that other vehicle that's at the rear of that tow truck is the Lexus SUV.
If we could, with the court's permission, zoom in. It's high on the screen, correct?
What's that?
The vehicles are high on the screen as we're
Correct.
looking at it. Could we zoom in to the top left portion of the screen?
Okay?
Can we play this video?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can you see what's depicted in the still image of that video right now?
I can.
I'm going to ask you if you'll turn to your right, concentrate on this area here. Do you see what's depicted in that still image?
I do.
Does that appear to be a taillight?
Yes.
Does it look clear? Does it look like it's shining red?
Looks clear.
The portion that is intact, does that appear to be brighter red?
Correct.
And the photograph that I just showed you a second ago, is that red portion there?
Can you rephrase that?
Sure. Let's go back. You see the red?
Yes.
All right. Is that the condition of the taillight as you saw it on January 29th around 3:15 or 3:30 when you got to the location?
It was.
Let's go back to the other exhibit, please. Exhibit 13. Can we zoom in, please? Can you see that this entire area is now missing?
I can.
Sustained. Just ask it differently. Mr.
Sure.
Jackson.
The area that I'm circling here, do you see any red lens in that area?
No.
Is that consistent, this photograph consistent with the condition of the taillight as you saw it on January 29th, 2022, at just after 3 o'clock in the afternoon?
Absolutely not.
Thank you.
Lights, please. Thank you. Mr. Brennan?
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Have we met before?
We have not.
Do you still work in Dighton?
I do.
At the time you went to the Reed residence, you did not know the occupants?
I did not.
Since then, have you ever met or spoke to William Reed
Nope.
or the defendant?
Nope.
When you went there that day, it was at the request of the state police?
Correct.
When they asked you to come, it's a typical procedure for one law enforcement agency to contact local law enforcement agency?
Correct.
And part of the reason they do that is to bring in separate and independent law enforcement officer to the scene?
Yes.
Because it's your jurisdiction?
Correct.
And they called you before they got to Mr. Reed's house, didn't they?
Yes.
They told you what they were going to do and when they were going to do it?
Yes.
They didn't just show up at the Reed house and then you found out later. They invited you and informed you what the process was going to be.
I wouldn't say that they told me what the process was going to be.
When you got there, were the troopers already there or did they arrive after you?
The troopers were there.
Were they in the house or outside of the house when you got there?
They were outside in a pickup truck.
Did you see them get out of the pickup truck after you got there?
They got out after I identified themselves.
Did you ever see them approach and touch the rear taillight of the defendant's Lexus?
I did not.
Did you ever see them manipulate in any way that rear taillight of the defendant's Lexus?
I did not.
Did you see them do anything that was suspicious, inordinary, or unfairly remarkable relative to that car?
I did not.
When they spoke to you, they then went inside the house?
What do you mean by spoke to me?
After they introduced you, you introduced yourself to them, they went into the Reed house,
Yes.
and then they came out.
They came out much later.
And that vehicle was towed.
Correct.
At no time from when you got there until you left, did you see anybody from the state police in any way tamper with that vehicle, did you?
I did not.
When the vehicle was towed, do you know how long it took to take the vehicle from Dighton back to Canton?
How long?
Yes.
I do not.
You didn't escort it back.
I did not.
You had an opportunity to write a report in this case, didn't you?
I did.
And when you did, you had an opportunity to describe the damage to that taillight in any way you wanted to.
I did.
You could have gone into detail about size of the damage.
I could have.
You could have gone into detail about the shape of the damage.
I could have.
You could have gone into detail about the width of the damage.
I could have.
You could have taken photographs of the damage if you wanted to.
I could have.
In fact, there was no limitation on what you could have written in your report regarding the damage, was there?
No.
You write reports regularly, don't you?
I do.
You're trained at the academy. It's the best way to memorialize events.
Correct.
Because in time, your memory is not always as good later on than it is at that moment.
Correct.
What might be important or remarkable later might not be remarkable at the time you're making the observation.
Correct.
So you're taught at the academy to use as much detail as you can so that you can have an accurate memory later on.
Correct.
Because oftentimes, well, you respond to a number of different events and incidents, don't you?
I do.
You write a lot of reports.
Not necessarily now in this position that I'm in, but
Did you at the time?
at the time, correct.
Yeah. And so it's sometimes difficult to remember the details of all events, and you use the report to refresh your memory.
Correct.
When you wrote your report, and you could have put as much detail as you wanted, is it fair to say you only wrote one single line about the damage to the car?
Correct.
The vehicle had damage to the right rear taillight.
That's what I wrote.
Fair to say you didn't document that it was the size of a dollar bill. You didn't say that, did you?
No.
Or that it was 3 to 6 inches. You didn't mention that, did you?
No.
You didn't mention the placement of where the damage was.
To an extent, I did the right rear tail light.
Right rear taillight. You didn't indicate if it was on the side or on the back.
I did not.
You didn't provide any other details of your description when your memory was probably at its best. True?
True.
And would you agree that your memory that day was probably much more accurate than it is today?
I would not.
When you wrote the report, did you ever have an opportunity to write a supplement report if you wanted to give more detail?
I guess I could.
You didn't.
I did.
Inevitably, you were a witness at trial. I'm sorry, you were a witness at a prior proceeding in this case, weren't you?
Correct.
You came in and you swore under oath regarding your memory,
Correct.
and that was probably a year to a year and a half after you first made the observations which you reduced in writing in the police report.
Correct.
And when you made those observations, that was on January 29, 2022?
Correct.
When you came into court and you testified, that was on June 10, 2024.
If that was the date.
You were asked questions to use your best memory to describe the damage to that taillight last time you swore under oath to tell the truth, weren't you?
I don't think I was asked that.
Well, we asked about to describe the best you could the damage to that right rear taillight last time you were in court on June 10th, 2024.
I don't think I was told to describe it in depth.
Were you asked questions about the damage to that rear taillight last time you were in court?
I was.
And when you described the damage, did you do your best of your ability to give as much detail as possible?
I did.
Did you qualify your memory at that time, saying to the best of my ability and recollection?
I did.
And when you qualify as a police officer with the best ability and recollection, that is recognizing that time had passed,
Time has passed, yep.
that you had a report, that you could refresh your memory.
Correct.
And did you refresh your memory with that report before you testified last time?
I did.
And when you qualified that it was to the best of your ability and recollection, that account for the fact that when you looked at the report, there was no detail other than your commentary in your report that the vehicle had damage to the right rear taillight.
Correct.
And so when you qualified, you were considering human factors like time had passed,
Correct.
that your report was respectfully scant,
Correct.
but you had heard a lot about this case since that point, hadn't you?
Correct.
And so considering your memory in June of 2024, when you qualified your answer, was it considering all of those different factors that had passed in between that time?
Can you rephrase that?
Yes. When you decided to qualify your answer, and you said to the best ability and recollection, and then you went on to describe what you remember from the break of the taillight, the reason why you used that qualification to the best ability and recollection, is it because of those human factors that had passed?
I would suppose so.
And sir, since the time you came into court on June 10, 2024, have you spoken to anybody from the defense about this case?
Yes.
How many times have you spoken to somebody from the defense about this case after you gave your testimony on June 10, 2024?
Once.
Where did you speak? Who did you speak to?
Attorney Jackson,
Did you speak to him in person or on the phone?
in person.
Okay, don't. Okay. You're not hesitating, are you?
No.
Where did you speak to him in person?
At his hotel.
How did you know where Attorney Jackson was staying?
He told me.
Did you find it odd to go visit an attorney at their hotel and talk about a case?
It was in their conference room.
Find it odd. Go to somebody's hotel to speak to them about a case.
No.
Without saying the name of the hotel, where was the hotel located?
Boston.
And where were you located?
I don't feel comfortable telling you.
Sorry. Did you have to drive?
I did.
So you took the effort to go to see Mr. Jackson at his request. Did you know who Mr. Jackson was?
I did.
Did you see him on TV?
I did.
When you went there to the hotel in the conference room, who else was there?
Attorney Little.
Okay. Who else?
I'm not sure of the other gentleman's name.
It was one of the gentlemen right here on the end?
The-
The good-looking one down there on the right?
no, it was not.
Somebody else?
Somebody else.
Okay. Was there anybody else there?
No.
When you were in that conference room, were you shown your police report?
No.
Were you shown your testimony from the last time you came to court?
No.
The photograph of the vehicle in Sally Port, the vehicle with the missing glass, were you shown that?
No.
Had you ever seen that photo before?
Of course.
And you saw it at the last event you testified at, right?
Correct.
And when you were shown that photo during your prior testimony, you never, ever suggested that that was in any way different than what you had seen in indictment.
Nobody asked me that.
You were asked to describe the damage, and you were shown that photograph, and you never, ever suggested that there was a difference in the damage as you see it in that photo compared to what you remember, did you?
I don't think anybody asked me to describe that.
Did you ever make a note or say anything that is similar to what you remember at the last event that you testified at?
I testified that that was not the taillight the day that I saw it.
That's what you testified at the last event?
Did.
Yes?
Yes.
You said that photo does not depict what you saw?
Correct.
Yes?
Yes.
And when you testified to that at the last event, who was asking you that question?
District Attorney Lally.
Okay. And you remember making that comment under oath?
I do.
Do you remember that as well as your memory about what the taillight looked like back in Dayton?
I do.
When you were asked questions about that taillight, you had described the taillight as...
I don't know about you all. We could watch the rest of this, but like I said, I gotta go walk a dog. I gotta custom a doggy to go walk, and I also just wanted to pipe in and say, I don't think this actually helped Brennan. Like, look at this. This guy does not look dishonest. His whole thing was, oh, maybe you misremembered. He came off as very genuine. And when you compare this police officer to the Boston Canton police officer, just look at the body language. It says it all. This was a devastating moment. Devastating. Between Lucky and Barrows and Devers and Marie Russell, and now you got Arca. I'm feeling good. I feel like we may have a not guilty verdict. We don't know because we don't know what the jury's thinking, but keep your fingers crossed. Keep your prayers. Let's free Karen Reed this week. I think we got one more week, people. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Court stream. Thank you all for watching, supporting. Thank you for the super chats and the Venmos. I want to thank Patty, who sent some money last night on Cash App. Patty F. Thank you so much, Patty F. And I think Lynette O. Lynette O. Sent $25 on Venmo last night. And she also said, good luck with your court case. Thank you so much. I'll see you tomorrow morning, court stream. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you, Carl Steinbeck. Thank you to my mods. Thank you, Sarah Shakanhara, Jen O, Stephanie. Who else am I missing? MJ, the Queen, and Scott McGinnis. We'll see you tomorrow morning in the chat. 9 a.m. See you in court tomorrow.